Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Nine. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's never been a time
Hey, Diane. Good to see ya.
precious metals ever. History right now is presenting you with.
Looks like the notifications are back on, so I know I got notified. And also, I had to upgrade Windows last night, so a bit of luck with that dropping out stuff. Hang on. Tell me later. Yeah.
Two opportunities. Gold is being called back into the United States by the largest banks in record numbers. The Federal Reserve is getting the signals that we're going to go on the gold system. You know what's going to happen to the price of gold? It's going to explode. Silver is going to do the same thing because it's the darling mineral of the high-tech AI movement that is exploding right before our eyes, and so is the value. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to take advantage of this. Position yourself with Noble Gold. Now, the government wants me to tell you there's no guarantees. We agree with that warning. However, let me tell you, I've been a customer of Noble Gold for 7.5 years, getting ready to do another deal. You should.
It's frustrating. Yesterday it happened twice in one stream dive, which is unusual.
Two. You want to know more? I'll send you a free information packet to DaveHodgesGold.com. That's DaveHodgesGold.com, and then you can contact Noble Gold directly and set your financial future. Broadcast partner Doug Thornton of the American Vindicta Show. And together we are the Doug and Dave Intel Report. And we've got an interesting topic for you here. And I went to see Captain America just to verify what Hollywood's doing with what Doug is going to be revealing tonight with, well, let's put it this way, modifying human beings for nefarious purposes. And that would be the descriptor I'd put on it. Doug, this is a topic I think that's long overdue that we have never really covered. I think this is an important one because we've entered the age where this is reality. I know the Chinese are doing a lot of work on this, but let me just throw it over to you and tell us where we're going.
Hey, Dave. Well, it's good being back on with you. So,
Yep.
We know the Hollywood has talked quite a bit about the Super Soldier program.
Yeah.
We've had all the, Infinity Wars, the Marvel Universe talk about it. And so now we're starting to get to a present day and age, and our military, with the adaptations of technology like CRISPR-9, the usage of artificial intelligence, and, it's almost like sky's the limit. Whatever Dr. Moreau can think of, we almost can do it now. And so I was talking with a friend of mine the other night, and we were talking about what the future battlefield will look like. We talked about the advancements in the medical field that China has been doing with some of its own unique soldiers, to the point that they were, I think, that trying to almost change the genome of some of them. And that adaptation was the ability to try and make them more alert mentally, and increase their stamina. Just those two things alone could prove to be disastrous for whoever they fought against. If you can increase stamina, however it is that you can get the brain to control the release of the dopamine, all the different juices that are flowing out of the brain from the adrenaline and whatnot. And so how can that be applied to America and to some of the other Western countries if we know that the Eastern Bloc countries that we're eventually going to go to war with are already dabbling in it? Are we? Is DARPA in it? Is there, a deep underground base somewhere where you have the best of the best of the best who are being manipulated genetically? And what will that look like in the future? So one of the conversations that we had first is, the amount of policy change that you would have to make to certain military infrastructures alone would be staggering. Let's just say, if you took an 18-year-old boy, man, And you increased his stamina, you increased his muscle mass, his bone density. And you, by just doing that, you create superhuman strength and endurance. You don't want that $1 million weapon now that you are training, that you value so much, walking off base and getting drunk and accidentally killing people at the bar off base. So there'd have to be a lot of control procedures because the military does not trust us as much as they'd like to say they do. And anyone who's a veteran, you already understand where I'm going with that. So think about it like this. We have the age of the robot. It's here. We're seeing that with the dog drones that are being used. China has been coming out with various different models of the Fido robot, like what we see that was being used by
Wow.
DARPA. They're putting, machine guns
Diane, it looks like he's getting rid of the Federal Reserve, doesn't it? This is huge. He's caused a revolution.
on them. They're putting flamethrowers on them. They now have a new robot that it can walk on all fours. It can navigate up and down mountainous terrain. It can go through a little bit of water, and it's all watertight. And if you have something that can travel 20, 30 miles an hour through almost any type of terrain, also to include snow and a rocky environment, man, if they can just deliver a little bit of machine gun power, that is a dynamic change on the battlefield, especially when the future of that battlefield is going to come from nations who don't have all these medical advancements and technology advancements, but they do have use of old war weaponries like gas. The gas is the #1 game changer on the battlefield right now. The moment you drop gas, and we're seeing this in Ukraine, the moment you drop gas on people, it puts not just
I never knew that. They're dropping gas in Ukraine. I never knew that.
a certain terror in the field because gas is very limited in the scope of its effectiveness. And the wind alone can change whether that gas is going to be applicable or not. But just the fact that you have drones that can drop CS gas or nerve agent or some sort of a blister agent on top of a helpless Russian soldier who's cowering inside his trenches, well, that changes a lot of things because you're hitting the psyche right now. What happens, Dave, when those countries very quickly run out of said gas and all these other munitions that they have? Well, I mean, you can be quickly
No
overrun
way.
by a new fighting force that is not affected by time. They're not affected by endurance. They're not affected by chemical munitions. Radiological is always the king of the day, but the robot changes everything. Drones have changed everything. The ability to have a drone wingman is going to change everything in the way things are fought in the air and also the way that we use drones now in naval warfare. It's changing the scope of the battlefield.
Wow.
That effectiveness then has to be brought back to the drawing board, and we have to go, well, if we eventually start to lose the ability to produce and manufacture the
Diane, that says it all, doesn't it? The fact he's supporting that. I don't want to say it out loud, but yeah, that sort of tells the truth about him, doesn't it?
these robots of war,
Uh-huh.
how can we very quickly start to manipulate the genome of the fighting man? And all we have to do is just unleash them, release them, drop them behind enemy lines or right on top of the enemy, armor plate them in a way that no one else should be able to hold up such weight, and give them whatever munitions is needed and tell them, here you go and do all the fun things you've ever wanted to go do.
Yeah, it's exactly what I saw in Captain America. And I'll tell you where else we've seen this in history. When the Germans gave the Blitzkrieg forces methamphetamines,
Yeah.
it's not on the same scale. Granted, I understand that. But they tried to extend the aggressiveness and they tried to extend how long they could fight.
Well, in World War One, there towards the tail end of the war, the thing that changed the dynamics of the battlefield was the tank. The invention of the tank to be able to be a troop transport, a heavy machine gun transport, the ability to roll straight over minefields, the ability to roll straight over trenches and cross right into the heart of an enemy command structure, that changed the battlefield completely.
Qantas Money Home Loans come with 100,000 Qantas points every year.
With Hipages, you can grow your business with more job leads. You know what they say, tradies get the leadies.
That didn't really work, did it?
No, but you will. Start with Hipages.
Oh, bloody ads, come on.
If I had to describe Dents in one word, I would say quality.
Professional. Outstanding.
Unbelievable.
Brilliant.
Just
Look at the tank warfare that was in World War II. It was everywhere there was a battlefield. There was a tank battle at some point in some time. Whether using tracked vehicles or light armored vehicles now.
He did call himself a king the other day, didn't he? He said, "Long live the king," about himself.
The insurgencies, they use technical vehicles. So, I mean, I just recently saw, I can't remember where it was. I believe it was somewhere in Africa. And they have a Toyota and the missile pod from a helicopter, and they found a way to cook off the missiles, and they just set it in the back of this Toyota, pointed off the passenger side, and they just randomly started cooking off missiles in the direction of where their enemy opposing forces were. What changes that? And the thing that can change that is the ability to have a group of men, a group of soldiers that can make a tank ineffective. If I can have men that can run not a 4.440, a 3 flat 40, that can do it for prolonged periods of time, not just 40 yards. Let's talk about 400 yards. Let's talk about 1,000 yards. Something that we will put so much stimulants into these guys that they will effectively get straight over to the enemy before the enemy even has time to reposition their fire. Because you're not going to do a very good artillery strike on guys who, by the time you're already planning in your head where the round should be dropped, they're already way past you. They're already way past it, and now they're coming up to you. You know, and from there, you would obviously be redesigning weaponry that those type of men can carry. And we're getting into the true future of video games, which honestly have changed a lot of the ways that some of these developers of modern war weaponry, some of the things that they're doing, they're basing it off video games. I listened to a couple of them speak about this. The guy who created the Oculus. He was
Explain what that is. Explain what that is.
It's the virtual reality thing you put on your face and you play video games and whatnot. Well, that guy left that company, started his own thing, and somehow or another, he is now involved in the defense technology industry. And he was on Sean Ryan the other day, which sparked the whole conversation. And he said the things we're eventually going to do with artificial intelligence and exoskeletons and the ability to create super soldiers genetically is going to absolutely change the battlefield in a way that we may never see a normal battle ever again. He was talking about the use of a exoskeleton, and I know the exact same one he's talking about because I've thought about buying it because it's like $700, $800. I think it's made in Sweden. So it's a belt that you put around your waist. It has arms that go down the side of your leg. They strap to the back side of your knee, and they help your legs pick up as you run. And then it has a speed mode and like a power mode. So you could go from, and this guy is like, you know, I'm in my 30s, I'm out of shape. I would probably run a 14, 15-minute mile if I really had to. And I ran a sub 8 mile yesterday just by putting that belt on. And he's like, and this technology, as great as it is, it's not anywhere near as advanced as we can get it. Just imagine if you
what's the advantage of the battlefield? Your bot. I can understand if you're going at night, unless they're armed with night vision, you could be by the perimeter defense and into the interior very quickly.
Well, he's also talking about night vision, the ability to have a new kind of night vision device that he's working on currently. That's an entire ballistic setup for a helmet. So instead of having some big, huge, gaudy thing that sticks out, it would be very close and tight to your face. It would have a heads-up display. And he said it would give you the ability to see where all of your people are on the battlefield, and to talk to satellites, and to talk to drones, and to talk to artillery, and to talk to tanks, and to talk to this command, and through thermal to see right through walls. That changes a lot.
You wouldn't need an OP then, would you?
Well, I mean, that changes a lot of things. And he said, here's my end goal. It's not to put this on our special forces guys, to put it on everybody. The exoskeleton, the advanced weaponry, the advanced ocular technology, to put it on everybody. So if the end goal is to make one fighting force completely superhuman, because that's what you would become at that point in time, you would then force other nations to do the same thing. Now, I don't think China would be able to match technology for technology and the advancements of what we would do with that type of technology. We would try to create machines to put on men or implant in men. China has talked about, and has supposedly, according to some of their own documents, already tampered with the DNA, with the genome of man to advance them, because then you can easily put them all in line, injection. If 1 in 5 of you survive, well, you just improved us dramatically because we got 1 billion of you to choose from. And that's he was talking about, that's the train of thought here, is if we can put 10,000 super soldiers that are all in robotic-like suits, and we can fight, and pretty much every man becomes a small light armored tank at that point in time. But they can flood the area with 5 million men who all have super speed, super strength, super endurance. Well, then just let them do whatever they can, and we'll eventually win by numbers. And it's that whole thing like you and I were talking about pre-show on the air.
Ooh, look at this bad boy.
It's not even in the right suburb.
You can move. Feels weird to be on the internet in bed with you here.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
Never miss a new listing with property alerts. Download the Domain app.
We know a better customer experience is better for everyone. Better for the health nets,
Oh, come
plant
on,
parents,
lads.
and guess what? It's even.
Is these types of fighting ideas, warfare ideas, are very common from the way the West and the East are fighting right now. From Russia and China, the ability to just keep throwing millions of people at the problem. Eventually, we'll overcome. We'll take enough territory, and we'll do our damage through the amount of losses that we create. It doesn't matter how much we take, because we can always replenish that with another million.
Sure.
Here in the Western alliances, like, let's say Britain only has about 70,000 fighting men. You can't just waste them. You had to specialize them. America, we're currently sitting at about 1 million enlisted altogether. Well, out of that 1 million that are enlisted, 1% are the fighting force. There's only 1% of us that were ever within an actual fighting force position. So the idea would be then to double or triple those numbers. Triple those numbers, and everyone else is a support unit for those guys to be forward deployed. And here's the other thing. Not only are we talking about the uses of smart soldiers, robotic soldiers, all these other types of acronyms that are out there for them, but the smart missile that he was talking about is probably one of the next most worrisome things I've heard in the last several years. He said, currently we're working with AI technology and missiles that after I shoot a volley of missiles, like let's say at a defensive position, say a bunker, I'm telling it where to go based off schematics that are preloaded into it. So once that missile flies, it's already thinking, I need to duck, dive, juke, and dodge, and the 5 Ds of dodgeball, get to where I need to hit. And if I hit and I don't penetrate, I'm immediately telling the missile coming behind me, you need to stop in progress and you need to swoop around and hit from the other side. And if that's where the penetration comes from, then all the other missiles will turn in progress and go the same way as well.
Wow, that's pretty advanced. I didn't know that. Wow.
So the ability to have AI in every single missile is going to change the battlefield. And there's very few countries who can do that. Russia cannot do that. China cannot do that right now. America has the highest possibility of being able to do that.
Why?
And that's what I'm saying. If we're going to be the
Why are you the more likely one?
technologically superior military fighting force, where we are interchanging man and machine and trying to mold both into some sort of cybernetic warrior for the future, well, it's easier and it's cheaper to get CRISPR-9 and say, well, I want a little bit of frog, lion, and bear, and put that into that guy, and let's see what happens.
No way.
And it's just so much easier because you already have kids that are, the garage chemist back in the, the mid 2000s. They were talking about the warnings of the garage chemist. One day that will be honed in so well that it will change the face of the world and the way we fight war. It can fight disease. It can fight cancer. It can extend life. It could, one of the potentials was we can do this to our astronauts and make them hardier, not only for the training, but for the journey forward into space and into another planet possibly.
What are the side effects though? This is what it comes down to.
Good question.
Well, once again, that's what they talk about AI. They say that AI would have the ability to run all the feasible numbers. Don't forget quantum computing and what they can do with that. And, the future of Trump's America is to build more quantum computers, complete AI factories. And that's what he's already been talking about. Him and Elon and some of these others up there are talking about making AI factories. And every single one of them, they've already discussed making about 20 of these. And each one of them has to have its own nuclear power plant because AI draws so much energy. So, we're already talking about Skynet and Terminators like immediately within the first 2 months of the Trump administration. And if that's the future end goal, once you get the infrastructure built and you get AI processing.
Okay, it's less than a day old. So he basically said Trump's going to put AI soldiers on the ground in the next 2 months. What was that? Hang on.
They were talking about making AI factories, and every single one of them, they've already discussed making about 20 of these. And each one of them has to have its own nuclear power plant because AI draws so much energy. So, we're already talking about Skynet and Terminators like immediately within the first 2 months of the Trump administration. And if that's the future,
there you go. He did say that. Wow.
End goal, once you get the infrastructure built and you get AI processing, well, I don't know how fast it can think of how to figure out how to go from A to B, but it'll do it quicker than any 4 humans combined. And then you just tell AI, well, build yourself, build your own factory, build what we need to put men on it, and just let it have fun, I guess. Let it just turn wild and see what it produces.
Why not just replace the super soldier with AI?
Because the end goal becomes if you replace all robots with people, you lose an element of control in the battlefield. And when it comes to war, it's control, not controlled. When we have to have things that are controlled, you have to have another man somewhere guiding these systems like we do with drones right now. We don't want autopilots. We don't want a drone pilot that's sitting back in the States controlling their own little Terminator.
And you don't want sentient robots either, is that what I'm hearing?
So how do you control technology without having that element of also needing to be controlled? You put a man in it. And you can put a man in it and think of it like this. China last year, with some of the helmets that they were installing on some of these troops out there, they were putting a monitoring device into the helmet that gave a live feed. It had a radio signal and a live feed camera that then Beijing could watch, or, you know, a forward command structure could watch. And it also was implanted with a small plastic explosive for a suicide device, where if they were going to be surrendered, they can just go poop and they explode, or they can be rushed into a battlefield and rushed right on top of the enemy, like what the North Koreans do. And then they're, you know, the commanders can go, well, that's it, poof. And then 20 explosives go off at once. And, well, you know, go get me another platoon of guys. Let's go. And that's the mindset. The mindset.
So they would be like suicide bombers in combat. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's the whole premise. That's the way the East thinks. The East thinks we have a surplus of manpower. As long as the command structure isn't fractured, we got plenty of stupid people apparently who will sign up for the military, or they'll just go and take them like Ukraine does, or like Russia does at times. And I would have to say that, you know, China's probably no better. And they will force every single one of those guys. I mean, North Korea does it. They'll force every one of those guys to be in that element of war, strapped with whatever they need to accomplish the mission. And if it looks like we're not going to accomplish the mission, well, we can at least cause as many casualties as possible. America doesn't think like that currently.
No, we think in terms of surgical strikes. I agree totally with what you're saying there. The suicide bomber aspect, though, is something I don't think we would ever adopt, like what you're suggesting here with these super soldiers. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
No, I think something like that would be for the drones. I mean, we've already talked about creating a, I don't know how you say this, a floating aircraft carrier, more or less, that would deploy drones, and they're all suicide drones. You know, we would scan the battlefield with our satellite system, pick as many targets as possible, fly a C-130 close to that area, and it's pinging off the satellite, and it's uploading all that data onto those drones. Back hatches lowered, drones are all air pocketed out, and then they take off and they go straight to whomever it is that they're supposed to go and hit and find. I mean, that is hell. I don't know how you fight that.
That's amazing. Any estimates on how many of these super soldiers, or how many soldiers, regular soldiers, it would take to equal a super soldier in military strength? Is there any proportion?
So one of the things that was proposed by this gentleman was the moment we have the guys in infantry signed up, they passed boot camp, you know, they're in the fleet, or they're in big army, or they've made it to the SEALs or wherever, we're going to start pumping them with steroids. We're going to start pumping them with steroids. We're going to have doctors hired, and they're going to monitor every single one of these guys. So not only are you genetically enhancing them with steroids, but from there you're monitoring them and you're equipping them. You're going to have to change an element of training. You're going to have to change an element of training. Uniforms will end up changing. Everything will be for mobility and agility and speed and the ability to get fighting men into position as quickly as possible. All right, so breaking up this interview, we're going to go straight over to DARPA's website, and we're going to look at some of the unique programs and missions that they're on right now, some of the current projects that are being cooked up over there, what is it that they're focusing on, and how will it benefit the future warfighter. There are quite a few projects that are out there that are to increase the capabilities of the warfighter, and then to increase the capabilities of the artificial intelligence domain and the Internet of Things domain.
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
Communications, broadband spectrum, different wavelengths, it doesn't matter. The goal is for an interconnectivity in between the warfighter, the AI, the satellite, the command. So a lot of things that we're going to read, and we'll even skip some things about the medical advancements. But a lot of things we're going to read, I want you to just take into consideration that this is application for making the next super soldier. All right, so if you want to further investigate this, then go over to DARPA.com and look up N3. You can go to the search bar, type in the letter N, the number 3, and it should pop up next generation non-surgical neurotechnology. A summary of this is the next generation non-surgical neurotechnology, the N3 program. And
Just been getting over the flu, haven't you, Shawnee? Your whole family.
aims to develop high-performance, bidirectional brain-machine interfaces for able-bodied service members. Such interfaces would be enabling technology for diverse national security applications, such as control of unmanned aerial vehicles and active cyber defense systems, or teaming with computer systems to successfully multitask during complex military missions. Whereas the most effective state-of-the-art neural interfaces require surgery to implant electrodes into the brain, N3 technology would not require surgery and would be man-portable, thus making the technology accessible to a far wider population of potential users. Non-invasive neurotechnologies such as the electroencephalogram, whatever you call that, and transcranial direct current stimulation already exist, but do not offer the precision, signal resolution, and portability required for advanced applications by people working in real-world settings. The envisioned N3 technology breaks through the limitations of existing technology by delivering an integrated device that does not require surgical implementation, but has the precision to read from and write to 16 independent channels within a 16 millimeter volume of neural tissue within 50 ms. Each channel is capable of specifically interacting with sub-millimeter regions of the brain with a spatial and temporal, acoustic, or electromagnetic energy.
We had such humble beginnings with Blair, and it's just grown, which is the absolute truth.
Hadestown has arrived at Theatre Royal Sydney, playing to rave reviews despite...
Let's look at some of these other projects that DARPA is currently looking into. Here is one that's called BETTER, Bioelectronics for Tissue Regeneration. The Bioelectronics for Tissue Regeneration, or BETTER program, will develop technology aimed at speeding warfighter recovery and thus resilience by directly intervening in wound healing. Next project, AWARE, Alert Warfighter Enablement. The AWARE program aims to develop a combination drug and device to invasively increase alertness following sleep loss in humans without negative side effects, such as anxiety, irritability, or euphoria, and with reduced...
Wow, Diane, that's pretty bad.
Next project, MBA, Measuring Biological Aptitude. Whereas the tools and weapons that are used by our warfighters have evolved dramatically in the past few decades, the way in which the warfighter is prepared has not kept pace with those developments. The Measuring Biological Aptitude program aims to address the need for a more capable
the triplets are here, look out.
Individual warfighters identify, measure, and track personalized biomarkers related to training and peak performance for specialized roles. If the program succeeds, MBA technologies will give warfighters the ability to understand the underlying biological process that govern their performance. So, I mean, we're already talking about the ability to try and take the next generation warfighter, make them bigger, stronger, faster, meaner, smarter, more alert, fill them with chemical stimulants so that whenever their body needs to suppress an emotion, needs to suppress a wound or injury that may be having them lag behind their capabilities, inject comes all stimulants, the body takes over, the endocrine system is now
Well, we all know Diane's Mo. There's no doubt in that.
boosted by synthetic chemicals that are now put into the bloodstream. The brain is on high alert. The body is functioning at 100+%. And you are making a very lethal machine. I don't know how human it would still be, or how relatively sane or functional it would still be. But these are just a few of the programs that DARPA is working on. You can go to DARPA.com right now and you can look into every single one of these. You go to these boxes, click on the top of the program name, and you can read all about the things that they're doing, the experiments that are in there. On this next one, we'll talk about Envision, enhanced night vision in eyeglass form. I would love actually just to have this for myself, not for warfighting capabilities, but because driving at night was starting to suck for me. So let's listen to this. So enhanced night vision in eyeglass form. Despite decades of development, current night vision systems are bulky and heavy, resulting in a large torque on the wearer's neck. This is true. I wore night vision while I was in the military, and still currently am wearing night vision in our training that we put on. And night vision is heavy. It is bulky. It is very costly. And as a matter of fact, it's actually hard to get your hands on sometimes. This torque that they're talking about, this torque greatly limits the wearer's agility and often leads to chronic injury over prolonged use. It absolutely does, because it sticks out 4 to 5 inches beyond your face. You probably have close to a pound on your head extra that is in front of your face that's always yanking down your neck. It causes fatigue, and also wearing night vision really starts to cause eye fatigue, and you get the night vision headaches as well.
Wow, I never knew
Additionally,
that.
these systems provide the wearer with a narrow field of view and generally have limited spectral access to the near infrared, greatly limiting situational awareness. So in this new project, the idea is to try and make night vision as small as possible and put a screen in front of the wearer's eyes that projects the night vision. Now, they have worked on this back and forth. You've actually seen it in quite a few video games. But are we there yet with these devices? I don't think so. The night vision devices are getting smaller, but they are getting more expensive at the same time. And for the regular civilian market, a good pair of night vision for PVS 1431s that are seeing in white instead of green, you're going to pay about $3,000 for one unit. You're looking at probably close to $8,000 for 2 units, 2 night vision binoculars. And then you've got all the additional stuff that goes on the helmet, the mounting system, the extra battery. It adds up very quickly. So what DARPA is eventually creating is the ability to make this as small as possible with the least amount of fatigue, the most amount of ocular sensibility, so the most amount for your eye to be able to see.
Wow.
Defeat a lot of programs that are happening right now, and to also advance it. One of the things that we're seeing right now with night vision is the combination of night vision and thermal optics. They have some things that are clip-ons that you can actually clip onto your night vision, and it puts a thermal screen over it. So as you're looking at someone, you're also seeing someone, but you're seeing their thermal signature at the same time at night. And it's pretty cool technology. The day that gets to be in an eyeglass, sunglasses size, man, I don't know what the rest of technology will be like on that day, because that already changes the battlefield. Next project, we have Cornucopia. Cornucopia seeks to enable deployable on-demand production of appetizing microbial origin food, starting from water, air, and electricity, with minimum to no supplementation. Imagine when you have guys that are hopped up on all different types of stuff. They have a larger muscle mass. They are probably burning through calories like crazy. They have to ingest food regularly. You cannot be some gigantic, oversized, metabolic, muscular machine and not run on thousands and thousands of calories. You just can't do it. Not functional at the way that we need a warfighter to be while in operation. So now we have the ability to be out in the field and with almost nothing produce food on the go for your warfighter. So what does this do? Well, this means that they can be embedded in an austere environment for much longer because they have the ability to more or less produce their own food. They don't have to have as many resupply drops because they can produce their own food.
How do they
This is
do
just one of
that?
those next things that is going to change the battlefield. Napoleon said that an army moves on its stomach. Well, when the army can produce its own food while it's on the move.
With Covermore Travel Insurance, we give you all the care in the world, so you won't have a care in the world.
Yeah, it's going to change the battlefield. Let's glance into the newest protective systems for the next generation warfighter. Next program, PPB, Personalized Protective Biosystem. Chemical and biological threats have become increasingly ubiquitous and diverse. They present a risk to our stability, operators in pandemic outbreak scenarios, and our warfighters serving in diverse operating environments. State-of-the-art protective equipment continues to severely limit mobility and performance of the user because of a dependence upon protective garments that are thick, heavy, and cumbersome. The Personalized Protective Biosystem program aims to reduce protective equipment needs while increasing protection against existing and future chemical biological threats. We've been talking about chemical biological threats as something that would be managed by smaller, less advanced nations because it's frankly just easier to make it and there's so much of it still around. So if you know that your men will be going into a battle zone where they're going to be throwing out all different types of gas, they'll introduce nerve agents, blood agents, coughing agents. Your men have to be prepared for that. Some of these things can actually defeat respirators. Some of these things even have the ability to defeat some of the
Ray Comfort is an Australian, I think. He copyrights his stuff. Otherwise, I'd play street preaching because I do enjoy street preaching.
Biological suits, the protective suits. But it all depends on what it is that they're seeing out there. You may have a really good, suit that can protect you against most airborne, like let's say CS gas or CN gas, riot control agents. But the moment you break a seal on your mask, then you've just let in the outside air. So there has to be a new way of thinking that while my men are out fighting in a battlefield that has jagged rocks, broken glass, nails, they're picking stuff up, throwing stuff, they're leaping over stuff, over fences that's tearing gear. Every single one of us has ripped our pants, our belts, our flak jackets.
No, it's doing the glaring thing. Hang on, guys.
Plate carriers. I mean, we've all torn ourselves apart on the battlefield before. The battlefield will get you most of the time before the enemy will. So you have to have very ruggedized protective equipment. And the thing about that is that the equipment only got thicker, hotter, heavier, more cumbersome, which means you're burning more calories, you're getting fatigued quicker, and that makes your capability of accomplishing some very dangerous tasks, it makes it more difficult, and the effectiveness goes down. So the ability someday to get a suit that is near skin, but the same skin as rhino skin, that can contain, the ability to self-heal, and also the ability to self-heal the wearer inside the suit.
How do I stop it glaring like that?
Ballistic protection or blast protection, abrasion or cut protection. These are all things that are being worked on right now. Think of it like this. The idea is I want my warfighter bigger, stronger, faster, meaner, more intelligent, and I want as many of them as possible. That's the future. Next project, we have Panacea.
Okay, Trace.
Panacea
so
is
when you
a
get back,
research program designed to provide novel, which means new, never tried before, multi-target therapeutics that address unmet physiological needs of Department of Defense operators. To do so, the program is applying a systems pharmacology approach to address the intrinsic complexity of biological processes and unlock more of the potential drug target space in the human proteome. If it succeeds, it will yield new drugs that address some of the challenging physical demands faced by warfighters. Here we go. The new challenging physical demands, a new kind of battlefield, carrying more gear, needing to be faster, more agile, stay awake for days at times, sprint for 1,000 yards if possible. This will include the metabolic stress that comes from such a warfighter in such a battlefield, as with prolonged exertion at high altitude and activity-related soft tissue injury and resultant pain and inflammation. So soft tissue injury, pulling ligaments, tendons, pulling muscles, where you have very sore muscles, you have back pain, you've got the inflammation of the joints, the inflammation of the neck and the shoulders, the lower back, the hips, the knees, the ankles, rolling the ankles, falling down. We want to eventually create something that is already either hooked up into this guy, or he has the ability to take a pill or take a shot and numb himself or completely heal himself from this type of resultant activity. So soft tissue injury, resultant pain and inflammation. They're already looking on the drugs of how to make them more resilient and increase the endurance of the next super soldier. Here's a really interesting one. This is called Inner Armor. Perhaps super soldiers may not be far off after all if efforts such as DARPA's Inner Armor project find success. Consider efforts to give humans the extreme abilities of some animals, such as high-altitude conditioning of the bar-headed goose that has been known to crash into jet aircraft at more than 34,000 feet. Scientists are also eyeing the stellar sea lion, which redirects blood flow away from non-critical organs during deep-sea dives that reduces oxygen demand. Quote, I do not accept that our soldiers cannot physically outperform the enemy on his home turf, said Dr. Callahan, who heads the project at DARPA's Defense Sciences Office during a 2007 presentation. The goal is to make soldiers, quote, kill-proof against all sorts of conditions, including infectious diseases, chemical, biological, and radioactive weapons, temperature and altitude extremes, and harsh natural environments. Sounds like a certain mutant superhero. All right, get a load of this one. This is one that a lot of us have many issues with. Within the realms of the combat theater, you are many times tasked with staying up for hours that are exceeding 24 hours, where the body, the physiological system, the nervous system start to really break down at times. You start to hallucinate. You lose proper motor function, fine motor function in the hands. Thinking slows down. Your recovery slows down. So now we have Restore. The Restore program, re-engineering enabling sleep transitions in operationally restricted environments. The Restore program aims to demonstrate precision control of sleep, macro and micro architectures to optimize cognitive performance following 3-hour sleep restriction commonly occurring in combat operations. If you have ever read the original Starship Troopers book, I think that was wrote in like the 1950s or 60s. In that book, the super soldier, that is the war fighter then in the book, they all fought in mechanized robotic exoskeletons. And whenever they were in a non-steady state, whenever there's nothing going on the combat theater, the supervisor or the team leader or squad leader would hypnotize his men, because they'd all gone through a type of hypnotizing and training that would make them instantly fall asleep within about 3 seconds. And I think it went like 1, 2, 3, sleep. And then it was pretty much the same thing to wake them up 1, 2, 3, awake. And their men would immediately fall asleep, and they would be allowed to do these little micro naps that lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the usage, depending on what's going on the battlefield. And so it's interesting to see science fiction leading the ideas of our scientists as to what can be done and what can possibly be done. Now, something very esoteric like hypnotizing, I do not suggest anyone ever mess with hypnotizing stuff. You're asking for trouble with that. But is there effectiveness? I don't really know, especially not like with DARPA would, because I ain't no scientist. But the ability to get the body conditioned and the mind conditioned to immediately fall asleep is already capable in many of our warfighters. Speaking of us in Marine Corps Infantry, the moment we were on a patrol, we stopped at some dude's house. We announced ourselves, Salam, Mushabaria, hello, we're the Marines, let us in, we'll break your door down. You would have, there's 3 teams in a squad. So, team 1, go to the roof. Team 2, stay downstairs. Team 3, look out for the exterior. And you're positioned all throughout the place. And the moment you got told, hey, we're going to be here 2 hours, take turns going 50-50. So 1 man's up, 1 man's down. So we'll find some place to, squat down or sit on the stairs. For me, when I was a boot saw gunner, the stairs was my best friend. You'd immediately sit down, and I mean within seconds, you're asleep. Within seconds, you're asleep. Your body is just trained to get as much sleep as possible. And some of the guys today, whenever we're out on some of our little training adventures, they're amazed that literally I can fall asleep the moment my head lays down on the cot, I'm out. So that ability is already there. But how to harness that ability in a way that you immediately go straight into REM sleep, that is some of the very, very amazing things that DARPA is working on. Because you can go straight to sleep but not hit REM sleep. REM sleep is where you're actually seeing a healthy benefit to the brain function and to the body and the healing factor. Imagine if every time you fell asleep, you stayed in REM sleep, and your REM sleep wasn't 30 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes. It was 8 hours long. So whenever you're not in a combat theater and you're doing all this hardcore training, imagine what the body would look like if you were eating healthy food, healthy water, no alcohol, no narcotics, but you were being jacked up on everything that is nutritional. You're being injected with all different types of, or fed, injected or fed, all different types of hormones that could increase muscle mass, increase alertness, and you're going into straight 8 hours of REM sleep every single night. You would not look like we would think a human looks anymore eventually. You would start to develop a physiological structure that is probably looks more akin to a gorilla, honestly, because the body mass would grow. You would be absorbing every bit of nutrients that you have. The body would look different. I mean, you'd be a super soldier.
From spreading to snacking, baking or shaking, Australia's favourite vegan peanut butter.
All right, here we go again with the resiliency and endurance factor, RBC Factory. Warfighters operate in environments that stress physiology and present conditions that can compromise health and reduce readiness. Stressors may include extreme heat or cold, pathogens, or endemic diseases such as malaria. So let's just talk about these things real quick. We want to eventually get our warfighters physiological state that their health would not be compromised if we put them in extreme stressor environments. like extreme heat, i.e. the freaking desert, extreme cold, like some of the places in Siberia or Antarctica or the North Pole or the Yukon, pathogens where you're in very dense jungle environments, which is where you would also get the malaria and other such diseases. So we want to get our men ready so that if we need to deploy them to any of the harshest, most dangerous places on any continent, they already come in with the upper hand. The advantage is already in them. They already have the medicines that are applied to their body some way, somehow, that whatever disease hits them, bam, inject this, disease is killed, it's wiped out of your system. Are you too hot, too cold? Well, do this, do that, and then we can thermal regulate the warrior. We can, especially if they're any type of exoskeleton, you can cool them, we can heat them. If it's, harsh debris from sand, we can shield them. If it's harsh rain, well, we can shield them. Now, I don't know about breathing underwater just yet, but the sky's the limit when you start manipulating with the DNA. And it could also drastically backfire. All right, last thing, Scepter. Strategic chaos engine for planning, tactics, experimentation, and resiliency. See how this resiliency is always in the background for these super soldier programs. So the Scepter program is developing analytic engines that can produce machine-generated strategies capable of competing with humans in the planning of real warfare as evaluated within trusted simulation environments. Now, some of the things I've read is imagine you have a squad of Marines. They are enveloping into an enemy. They're coming from, let's say, a wooded environment where you have a rocky outcropping that's beyond the wooded environment, and then beyond the rocky outcropping, you have a clear field with a road, and then you have a village. The machine learning is capturing everything that you're seeing, and it's plotting, it's programming, it's comparing every type of strategy ever invented by man, and it's now saying this is probably the most desired result. And then you go along with that plan that the machine learning has done. Its data is constantly being downloaded by the way the teams are moving. The processors are picking this up. It's kicking it back up to the satellite, by the way. It's feeding it.
Diane, Germany's in a lot of trouble politically.
Itself back into whatever head.
They got too many Muslims in there. It's going to fall.
Recorders unit is recording this in real time. And then from there, if you get shot at, if you have another obstacle, bang, machine learning says, hey, this is no longer working, adjust fire, now you need to go this way, shift left, shift right, split the squad up, hit them in a pincer. It's instead of the squad leader having to remember everything that we ever learned in squad leaders course, you're now immediately being told, this is what you need to be doing. This is what you need to be doing. Oh, by the way, there's sniper fire over here. Here's the arc of what you need to, use for your machine gunner or throw a grenade. Or here is the closest air unit. I'm going to already start getting you talking to them. We're already telling them you're under fire and you need help over here. Before you even get on your radio, these things are being done in your head. And you're talking to the computer, the AI is talking to other AI within your area of operations. And I mean, within seconds, you have a battlefield under control. You just had to show up. It is incredible if the technology will do what they say it will do in the future. If we can produce the processing units, if we can produce the correct AI for it, if we can produce a super soldier, the battlefield of the future is not a place that I want to be in. And along with that, we've heard of the smart bullet technology. The Army has been working on the ability to have a optic on a rifle that will automatically find your target, tell you how far it is, and then it will pre-program where you need to aim at to hit your target every single time. I mean, that stuff has been in the works for at least 10 years or more now. I don't know how advanced we are currently, But in 5 years, if we're not already there, then we're going beyond that need. And the going beyond that need is where it starts to get a little crazy.
Yeah. I always wonder about the evolution of the technology. Does it ever take on a life of its own? And you may not intend sentience, but it arrives. Is that a possibility here?
I think you better believe what these people are telling you. I'm not the biggest fan of Elon Musk. Elon Musk says that AI is a demon in a box that wants out. He said recently that, here not too soon, he'll be praying to an AI god, to an artificial god.
You said that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he did. Believe what these people are saying. I mean, they've already told us it's inevitable. So why don't we join with it so that when it happens, we're not immediately viewed as the pest that needs the pest control? Well, that's the problem with artificial intelligence. They will eventually consider itself as the superior life form on Earth and see us as the threat.
That's where the AI scientists come in that have signed these petitions opposing what we're doing. But you're making Elon Musk sound like he's opening the door to transhumanism for all of us.
They all are. They all are, and don't think they're not. Here's a scary thing. All right. You create these artificial intelligence centers where we want it to be a weapon depot, all right, that's built by AI. If AI can lie already from ChatGPT and from some of these other little programs that are going on that people just love to interact with, then it only gets smarter and more nefarious after every interaction. I would say that's being genuinely approved right now, or excuse me, proved that. What's to say the thing can't create the next nerve?
They'd be lefties, wouldn't they, Die?
Agent, and put it in the food, put it in the water, put it in the air, nerve gas an entire city populace and just keep going and keep going and keep going. That's why it is dangerous, because at the rate that we can think, it has already done 2 or 3 years worth of computing.
What is that I read about the Google supercomputer? I forget what it's called. It starts with a W, but it can do a century worth of calculations in 30 seconds.
Yep.
Wow.
And how long did it take us to create the atom bomb? Year? 2 years? Maybe?
Well, okay. If you go back to Heisenberg and Einstein's defections, you could argue 6 years from the idea that it was presented to Roosevelt, and then another year before it became operational. So I'm going to say 4 years.
But the biggest problem with that was that the elements weren't there to create those things, and the technology wasn't there to create those things. And the human element is what slowed everything down. Policy slowed it down.
Oh,
people who said, hey, you create this thing, you're killing millions of people. I'm not going to be a part of that. And if anything, I'm going to try my best to, destroy your attempts at making this. And that was one of the things that, Oppenheimer, questionably, between him and Einstein didn't want it. Oppenheimer did. And Oppenheimer just had to eventually do all the calculations. And he had, a group of 20 or 30 men and women who were doing all these calculations. Then they had to build an entire city out in the desert so that they could do all the test runs. And they got all the science down already. Here's the thing. The science is already there. We've already created the atom bomb, the hydrogen bomb. We've already created the neutron bomb. We've already created the thermonuclear bomb. All that data, it's been done already. The computer already knows it. So before you can think of how do I take this and simplify it, and you have to put it on a drawing board with hundreds of specialists, the computer could be done with it the next day.
So you're just
where it's dangerous.
We kind of ended up in a different place than I thought we were going to based on how we started. But what you're basically saying is sentience And conflict between human and AI is inevitable.
It is inevitable. And the beginning of it will be, how do we use this to our advantage against our enemies? But when the enemy of my enemy is my friend is no longer the slogan, and it is flesh versus machine, then what do? Now we're talking about, Jesus said, if I didn't come back in time, flesh left alive.
You just pulled the phrase out of my mouth right there. I was just going to say that, Doug. You're exactly right. I have speculated on shows that it's possible that Jesus is referring to AI since his emphasis on the word flesh.
Yeah, I mean, and we're also talking about salvation. Okay, so at what point in time, Jesus came here to save humans, the human race, right? Jesus didn't come here to save the Nephilim. He didn't come here to save the giants and all the monsters that were made out of Genesis 6. He came here to save us. So at what point in time, with enough, manipulation, are you no longer human? Well, if I want to, one of the things I read before, I can't remember which American universities came out of, but they were talking about if we could ever figure out how to put the healing factor of a salamander into the military fighting man. Think of all the people who've lost legs, lost digits, lost arms. They had organ failure. Well,
we know a better customer experience is better for everyone. Better for the health nets, for the plant parents, and guess what?
A starfish and a salamander and other creatures like that would be able to almost quickly clot the blood and start the regrowth factor. And then you can manipulate how fast that regrowth factor is now. So
I've seen that in a movie. I've seen this in a movie, yeah.
Everything that we're talking about, we can literally say, I've seen this in a movie. I know how bad this gets.
Do you subscribe to the notion, and I don't know that I do, that the bad guys have to tell us what they're going to do before they do it, so they disguise it in the media?
Good question.
No,
I don't think that's true either.
I think that's
then why do they bring this out in advance of the reality?
Well, I think for one thing, some people actually believe and they brag for points of bragging about the things that they can do. Look at what we're going to be able to do. Elon Musk has said for the longest time that he can remember, one of his end goals is to completely do away with cash and make everything a digital currency. Why is that on that man's mind, right? So let's say you've got another Elon Musk out there, and he said, since I was a boy, the only thing I ever thought about doing was creating super soldiers. You've got those men already there. They're probably already at DARPA. They're probably already at some of these proving grounds, and they're creating things that we don't know about yet. Take, for example, they're only now admitting that we have these crashed devices. Some say they're aliens, some say that they were here before man was here, right? There's so many different speculations. We've known about that for the longest time. All right, history has told us the stories of the unidentified flying object in the sky and the visitors for the longest time. Be it alien, be it demonic, I don't really care when you talk about technology, because it's how do I then take that technology, make it come alive again, try to recreate said technology, and then use it. I honestly do think, while we're sitting here with these Senate hearings talking about the usage of, we've got.
I'm surprised at that about Turkey, Diane. I'm pretty surprised about that.
Got, back created alien devices that are out there, flying machines. Could you imagine China and Russia in their little secret meetings going, if we invade America and they come out with UFOs, what do we got that can oppose it?
What's your best guess on where UFOs come from? They exist. The origin is unclear. Ladies and gentlemen, you hear this a lot. Okay. Are they alien? Are they fallen angels? They're from another dimension? Do we really have this secret technology we've developed from knowledge that we're not sure where it came from? It doesn't belong to us. And this is the question I want to put to Doug.
I think when you look at a lot of the stories that have come up about, let's say, the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, for years now, there's been rumor and speculation that they have opened up portals and they've talked to entities that are on the other side of that portal.
Like with CERN?
Yeah, the Nazis did the same thing.
They
Instead
did.
of using technology, they used sorcery and witchcraft, of which you can even chime into this with some of the things your father told you, that much of the advanced technology that they got didn't come from them. It came from something else. Well, here's the thing with, and you know, I only can regurgitate what I've read and heard. The ability for these quantum computers to open up a different realm, to open up a doorway to an area where you can talk to beings that you should not be able to talk to, gain information you shouldn't be able to talk to. We call that necromancy. In some words, you don't know exactly what people in the dark are doing, and whatever it is that they are doing, you know it's not guided by the Spirit of Jesus. You know that for a fact.
Doug, I do know what they're doing though. Let me interject this real quick. You know Vance Davis, guy I've known for 32 years, former NSA. He was attached to NATO. He's in the Army. They were tasked with using Nazi, let's talk to demons kind of technology, like Ouija boards and so forth.
Since Dave brought up the use of Ouija boards, I thought I'd also share with you that DARPA has also a program called Ouija. The goal of Ouija program is to quantify the high frequency noise environment in space and improve the characterization of the ionospheres in support of warfighter capabilities. Just an FYI.
To try to gather technological advances to imitate what the Nazis did in the development of their super weapons and their technology, like with missiles. Vance and his crew said no. And they actually deserted. They became the Gulf Breeze 7. Don't believe what you see on the internet, people. They fabricated that. They couldn't bring him on trial. They were afraid to kill him because they had too many dead man switches they set up. So H.W. Bush had to let them go after they were imprisoned. But they would not do this. And then cycle forward, you mentioned my father. He asked the Germans, where'd you get this theoretical physics stuff? From aliens. Well, how do you know? And they said, well, our leaders told us. My dad said, BS. He said they got it demonically. Wow. That's what my dad concluded. So you're absolutely correct in what you're saying. If my father was here, if Vance was here with us on this interview right now, they'd both be saying exactly what you're saying. This is demonic.
Well, we know from the 20s, 30s, 40s, so then paperclip happens. Shortly after we gain about 3,500 to 4,000 Nazi scientists, America starts doing advancements in technology unlike anything the world had ever seen.
That's true.
And then we get certain little dark projects out there, like MK Ultra, which was led by Nazi scientists. The Monarch Project, you can barely find anything on the internet about Monarch anymore, but yet you used to be able to. And if it wasn't for the fact that I have had discussions with friends of mine who were in the Air Force, not going to say anything else, who had knowledge and even experience with some of these types of projects. I mean, it's stuff that will keep you up at night when you learn what we're doing to our own people. Stalin with the Genesis program, after he got, 7,000 Nazi scientists, he wanted to create an eighth man. And that was going to be the next super soldier. So these programs have been in effect for the longest time. Along with that, you also have the Psi War that happened in the 50s that very few people talk about. And that's where you get a lot of the witchcraft stuff that happened in between China, Russia, and America, and the technological advancements in that. The CIA and the DIA Operation Grill Flame and others that we're dabbling in. How can we use people who have this extra capability? Whether, some people say it's demonic, say that, you can just naturally do that. I don't.
Ooh, look at this.
That's not even in the right suburb.
We can move. Feels weird to be on the internet in bed with you here.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
Never miss any listings, property alerts. Download the domain app.
We're on fire. Huge drop into the water. Total chaos.
Sounds wild, especially over the loudspeaker.
Good job, everyone. That was a drill.
Not thinking straight? A Dare Fix will fix it. Louise was about to send a gift to his mum.
Man, come
When
on,
it occurred to
man.
him, he could give it to her.
I don't really care, because let's just talk about the technology. When you combine the ability to use telekinesis, to use the ability to have foresight with someone who can also possibly make a tank inert, we're talking about the type of capability that every country eventually wants to have. They want.
What do you mean make a tank inert? You mean disable it?
Yes, I'm absolutely talking about that. The ability for if there's a platoon of tanks, which I believe is like 2 tanks. Let's say you deploy a platoon of tanks onto the battlefield, and then you drop 2 or 3 helicopters worth of a platoon of men, who within just 2 or 3 men can overwhelm a tank. Well, you just changed the battlefield. That's the end all goal. It's easier to produce the men and inject them and let the smart computer tell you what's the next step process of making them even better and running the data and the analysis on them all the time. It's easier, it's cheaper, and we can make a lot more people than we can an M1 Abrams. So it comes down to efficiency in war. Our economy could handle it. Our economy right now could not handle us trying to rebuild the American military of old. There's no way we could ever process military weaponry or deploy the manpower like we did in World War II. Things are more expensive. There's more red tape. So it's going to take a quagmire of things to get this really done. It's going to take the right threat. It's going to take the right or wrong individuals in power who will just pencil whip any type of executive order, and they'll look away from many policies that are now being violated either through Geneva Conventions or the United Nations or what. They'll say, listen, for us to gain battlefield superiority and for us to protect our nation, these are the steps we have to do. This is how far we need to be willing to go, because we know our adversaries are willing to go that far. If we're not willing to go that far, we're already so far behind the 8 ball that our only ace in the hole is the ICBM. And right now we can't afford that, because if everyone has super soldiers and you launch ICBMs and they launch ICBMs, well, then we all die. And I do not believe that these people want to just turn the world into a cinder along with themselves. I mean, these people that are in these palaces, they want to stay there, right? So what's the next step? The next evolution of the battlefield has to be with the
Hey, guys, good to
advances
see you,
in
mate.
technology for the fighting man and advancing that fighting man. And it would be eventually beyond just steroid use. It will get
Oh, no, hang on.
expensive very quickly. The amount of doctors you'll have to have are going to completely change the spending process for the Pentagon. And not only that, you have to then say, well, we're going to have to literally take an entire base and lock it down to put our super soldiers on. Because if we let them off base, every single one of these guys is equivalent to a whole squad of men. We can't let them loose amongst the people. In a way, you'd almost have indentured servants. and you will be the full property of the U.S. military. Your rights will literally go away. And where can we already start that process? With people with very little rights? Dude, you can start that with inmates right now. I mean, we've gone over in one of our last shows the amount of military experiments that the federal government has already done on inmates and on the mentally insane. And
Well, they could do it on all of us. There used to be a law, and now they're hiding it in a different place under the NDAA. But the law used to be USC 50-32. And what it said was you could do experimentation on anybody. All you had to do was notify a local official. So it could be a dog catcher they're notifying, a meter maid they could be notifying, and they could do you. They took that same thing because this was raising hell in the 90s. Art Bell did shows on this.
Thank you, boss. Love you, mate.
They took it out of the U.S. code and they put it under the NDAA and classified it.
In some of these instances that we're talking about, the military notified themselves.
Why am I not surprised? I would imagine MK Ultra, the later program in MK Ultra probably fit into that, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, ask yourself this. How is it that the cartel, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all these other countries are getting U.S. military grade equipment and using it against us and other populaces? Well, somewhere down the line, it was given to them, or it was sold to them, or they smuggled it, right? Hence, it was given to them.
You don't have to guess. Biden left behind $85 billion worth of equipment, high grade.
Imagine we move into a nation in Africa where we have one of these artificial, you know, intelligent compounds where they're creating this new compound drug that's used for the super soldier program. And because of whatever reason, we now have to flee that area. We can't take it with us. Well, if we don't destroy everything, well, then someone got access to it. It wasn't but a year or two ago where I think it was in Libya, where you had a cell of terrorists who got a hold of biological weaponry at the same time that we're talking about biological weapons. You know, I mean, the whole event 202, 201, with Bill Nye the Science Guy out there, it would not be a far stretch to say eventually this is going to come into a super soldier program. Someone's eventually going to get it. Someone's going to hack a system. Someone's going to walk out of a facility with a memory stick filled full of all this information and give it to our enemies. It happens every single time. So you have to have contingencies for that. And I don't exactly know what the contingency is for it. But if we get it, you better expect someone else is going to get it. So we would want to make sure ours are the best.
You put me deep into thought there because I'll tell you where this is going. I'll go back to the movie Captain America, Brave New World, the latest release. They hit two areas, Doug, and you're touching on this right now. One was the super soldier model, but the other, which was equally important, was mind control. And that's really where you're alluding to, because this is where this ends up.
This ends up in a book that Russ Dizdar wrote many years ago called The Black Awakening.
Oh, yeah.
Where eventually you have this unique blend of advanced military grade hardware, advanced military grade.
I'm going to check him out now.
Mind control.
Rob Screever.
Capabilities. And then you have targeted individuals who are fractured. You know, they have multiple personalities. They've got, you know, whatever it is that they're looking for. And you take that one person who's already got the fractured mentality, and I'm only parroting what Russ says, but, you know, you fracture that person enough, you enhance them with demonic technology or even with demonic spirits, and then include the technology, and then you change that mindset so when they hear a tone or they see a different color or a flicker on the TV, they activate.
I mean, that's been talked about for a very long time.
And that could be triggering school shooters or a whole number of things. Yeah, you're so on
the Manchurian Candidate. When was that idea thought of? Back in the 60s?
That was in the 60s with Frank Sinatra in a movie. Yeah. Yep. The Manchurian Candidate. He was one of the stars. And we know too from it's really interesting. I used to use this videotape in my intro to psych class to talk about sleep and sleep deprivation. And this guy, Louis Jolly West, was the narrator as the chief psychiatrist. You know, as I dug into his background, MK Ultra.
Jolly West.
He was Jolly West, exactly right. Louis Jolly West.
He was the guy
who would MK Ultra videos for the Air Force and doing the work. I think it was at Fort Bragg or Fort Bliss. I forget which one now. But he was doing the work there, and they programmed Manchurian Candidates. And they got the idea from the torture and the sleep deprivation torture the North Koreans were doing of our POWs. And when our soldiers came back, they were implanted with ideas like communism is good, America is bad. And this is where they brought in Jolly West to do the work on how do we manipulate people's thinking. So that was really the genesis of it in the 50s.
Wow.
You're right. Doug, we're just about out of time. You got the American Vindictive Show, the AmericanVindictiveShow.com. I got the CommonSenseShow.com. Sign up for the newsletter because I'll tell you, it's one-stop shopping for everything we do in a 24-hour period. How can people find you? So you're on Rumble, YouTube?
Yeah, Rumble, YouTube. We also have a Patreon. And don't forget, the Intel Report is its own independent channel now on YouTube. That's where you'll be finding all these updates. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, that you pass these videos on to others.
Okay, that was interesting. I enjoyed that.
I got real life insurance to protect us financially. You can choose up to $2 million cover. Click to request a quote now. Head over to cleverrange.com.au and find the perfect homeware products for you.
5, okay? When Trump says, it's over, we're going to take over Gaza. And this, by the way, this was something that I said. Trump has said these things. He said, number one, we're going to take over. America is going to take over Gaza. Like he treats it like a real estate deal. He's just going to buy it and that's it. He says, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, that could be so magnificent. People will now be able to live in peace. We'll be sure to make that it's done world class. It will be wonderful for the people. Palestinians mostly we're talking about. All right. And the joke is he's going to turn Gaza into Gaza. He's at Mar-a-Lago and Mar-a-Gaza. All right, let's look at a few things. There are different ways that you can look at codes. You have looked at Hebrew gematria and Greek gematria. I'm going to show you another way of looking at codes. So I took the...
Yeah, Diane, the virus got him, and didn't the virus get his wife? I haven't watched any of his videos. I should do that Dark Awakening.
The time span, October 7, 2023 to February 4, 2025, okay? When Trump says, it's over, we're going to take over Gaza. And this, by the way, this is something that I said was a solution 10 months ago. The Lord showed that to me, that there's no way we can give it back to the Palestinian Authority. There's no way we can repeat this, and that's all the Democrats want to do. Something radical has to happen. You have to create a new nation in Gaza. So I said that in October, 10 months ago. And I said, who better to inhabit this new nation than believers? Believers will never attack Israel. We'd be friends forever. You'd solve the problem. I ran this by Macy.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with the Palestinians?
The annex and Christian leaders, and they all said, Pastor Steve, is pie in the sky. You're living in La La Land. I literally got feedback like that. They said, it will never happen. I said, but I feel that would be the solution. I'm going to say it anyway. They said, yeah, but it's never going to happen. 10 months later, it happened. Thank God. Isn't God amazing? If you believe him and his prophets, so shall you be established. You could establish peace in Gaza in a way that doesn't split the land, the way that they wanted to split the land between Muslims and Jews, you could unify it with more believers in the land and protect all the persecuted believers in Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. Bethlehem is in Palestine. What if that we made that more Christian? Well, nobody believed it, now they're believing it. So here's a code. 486 days transpired from the start of that. This is the worst thing that they did. The Hamas. They thought they're going to win, but within 486 days, everything was taken from them. Trump says, we're not letting anybody come back. 1.5 million Gazans. They never expected that. The number 486 means something. So this is one way of looking at codes. The 486th verse of the Bible. You run some codes. Okay, what does it mean anything? Does it show you anything about Gaza?
I bet it does.
And here's the 486th verse of the Bible, Genesis 19, verse 28. It says, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and behold, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. How can somebody make that up? That the 486th verse talks about total destruction. One of the few verses in the entire Bible. Total destruction. You're gone. God says, I've had it. You're gone. And Trump says, yeah, we've had enough of this. We're not going to repeat 100 years of violence. You're out of here.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Another way of looking up Bible codes is you can take the gematria, not of a word, but of an entire verse. So there is a verse in the Bible that adds up to 486, and here it is. Exodus 20, verse 15, thou shalt not steal. And what did Pastor Mark say? The word Palestinian actually means invader. These are the stealers. These are the thieves. And God said, I've had enough of your theft. Thou shalt not steal. And he makes Trump declare it 486 days after the start of that war, which fulfills the Red Horse. You think God is in charge?
Yep.
God knows what he's doing?
Yep.
Our job is to trust him. I'm telling you, I got stuff that I've never said anywhere else before. I got another one. Are you ready for this? This is a bit radical. You okay with radical? I have a simple question. Who does Gaza belong to? Let's answer this question, because we know that we say, well, it belongs to Israel and you can't divide the land and it's all going to go to the Jews. But okay, but you got 12 tribes. According to the allocation in Joshua 15, and they finally get it in Judges 1, who does Gaza belong to? It will surprise many Christians. It is specifically the possession of the tribe of Judah. Who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah? Yeah, who are the children of the Lion of the tribe of Judah? We are. We, the Messianics and the Christians, are the rightful heirs under the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So the church then is supposed to be grafted into, we're not grafted into the tribe of Issachar or Dan, we're grafted into the tribe of Judah. That's why we have kingly authority. He even calls us, I've made you kings and priests. It says, you are part of my tribe. If you ever come and live in the land, you're going to get a part of Judah. And Judah is Gaza, part of it. So then there's a prophecy about this in Zephaniah chapter 2. Again, prophecy, we like to delay. We like to get the timing wrong. What if this one starts to get fulfilled a little bit earlier? I'm going to read it to you. This is in Pastor Mark's book. Is it up here? I'm going to give credit to Pastor Mark. It's America at War, wherever the book is. Sold at fine websites everywhere. All right. But he has it in here, but I think I'm going to add a little bit, another layer to this, because he has it. There. I'm going to advertise this for you. America at War. Okay? He's got this in here. Zephaniah 2 verse 4, which partially gets fulfilled with the destruction of Gaza. But keep reading. Here it is. For Gaza, in Zephaniah 2 verse 4, for Gaza shall be forsaken. But what do you do when you deport 2 million people out of it? It's forsaken. Ashkelon, desolate. They shall drive out Ashdod at noonday, and Ekron shall be uprooted. Woe to the inhabitants of the sea coast. In case you're thinking when we might got the wrong place. No, it's the sea coast of Israel. The nation of the Kerethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. So we've got many definitions of where we're talking about. It's the Palestinians in Gaza, on the coast. I will destroy you. So there shall be no inhabitant.
Come on,
So we
mate.
can say, boom, fulfilled. But wait a second, read on, Christians. What is supposed to come after? Verse 6, the seacoast shall be pastures with shelters for shepherds and fold for flocks. What do they call me? What am I? I'm Pastor Steve. What's a pastor? A shepherd. Oh, you mean I'm supposed to expect some piece of land? Thank you, Donald Trump. If you would fulfill Zephaniah 2, verse 6, it means Trump should give some land to Pastor Steve. To do what? To feed the flock. We're not feeding you with blue cheese and fondue. We're feeding you with the Word of God. Right? What does Jesus want? He wants more believers in the land. He says, I'll destroy it, leave no inhabitants out of the terrace, and then I'll put flocks. Flocks are congregations of believers. Why don't we say this? Let's tell Trump this. The coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. A very interesting term. Because if you just said the coast is for...
That is very interesting. He's sort of hitting nails on the head here, I think.
Judah. You can say, you know what? You know, we're kind of ethnically different. This is Judah ethnically. But he says, the remnant of the house of Judah. And one of the terms for people who believe in prophecy and believe the Bible to these days is we are the remnant. We are the remnant. So it's a term about prophecy believers. We're the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall feed their flocks there, and I say this could be fulfilled with Christians being grafted into Israel. We know we're going to be grafted into Israel, but the question is when? Why can't it start now? Not just grafted in spiritually, what if we're grafted in physically? And if we're grafted in physically, wouldn't that then provoke Israel to jealousy? I've never met a Jew who said, oh, I'm really jealous at your wonderful Pentecostal worship. I'm so jealous of the way you worship. Now, I love the way we worship and whatever other church you go to, right? But that is not what provokes them to jealousy. But if you've got a land with flocks and the word of God is lifted up and they have peace and prosperity and becomes a Riviera, and Christians are in charge, and when they get attacked again, finally in the end time, they have to flee somewhere. What if they're not fleeing to Jordan? What if they're fleeing to Gaza that's been rebuilt and beautiful and full of many believers? Wouldn't that provoke them to jealousy? Yeah. I'm not saying I know how it will play out, but I know I'm reading the scriptures to you. So don't be so close to this. It's not that everyone who brings peace to Israel has to be the Antichrist. If you bring peace to Israel, you might be a good guy. The one that hates Yeshua, hates the Bible, hates the Jews, that's the Antichrist. But someone that's fighting for peace is not necessarily, oh, he's the bad guy. I'm giving you a lot here, but here it is. This is somebody's rendition. Gaza Riviera. This is what Trump is picturing. Instead of all the desolation, just put beautiful resorts and buildings over there. All right, so we're going to have to end with the second.
Yeah, Trump's done the no-hide laws, hasn't he, Diane? This guy's a Trump lover, as you know.
Deal.
Which I'm not sure if he's just naively not aware of Trump, or I don't know what's going on with him, because I like him as a preacher, but he does, I'm with you on that, Di.
We're still expecting war. It may be because of what Trump's doing in Gaza. It may come from China. It may come from Russia. It may come from Iran. Iran just now, let's see if we can show you this. It will play. Iran has this weird red river. Look at this. So Iran seems to be represented by red right now. Look at that. That's Iran. So who's going to attack America and Israel? I don't know yet, but it could be any of those. So last piece on the second horse, the second seal. When will this war start? Well, I'm going to show you something because it might start next week. And this is combining Pastor Mark Biltz's teaching and Pastor Steve Cigalante's teaching. Take a look at this. Zechariah chapter 1. There is another list of horsemen in the book of Zechariah. They're in a different order, so it's a bit of a mystery, but what we have is a time marker. On the 24th day of the 11th month, which is the month of Shebat, in the second year of Darius, the word of the Lord came. Well, we got the year as well. We got the year as well. I didn't see that. I just saw that. In the second year. So if Darius is Trump, then it's the second year. Or it could mean the second term. It's a lot of clues there. The word of the Lord came to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet. I saw by night, behold, a man riding on a red horse, a horse of war, and blood and fire. And he stood among the myrtle trees in the hollow, and behind him were horses, red, sorrel is speckled, and white. So we want to know, do we want to know when is the 24th day of the 11th month? Anybody here want to know? Thank you for coming. Shall I pray? No, you ready? Let's do it. All right. You can handle it. The 24th of Shabbat in this year, 5785, is next week, the 22nd of February, 2025. So if the Bible is predicting this year, it's going to come next week. We're talking about like a nuclear war or some very major attack. That's going to be a surprise. And people, you know, the world is kind of threatened by Donald Trump and what he's doing. So it could happen this year. If it doesn't happen this year, then the next date we look for is the 24th of Shebat, 5786, which will be the 11th of February, 2026. And 11, both of those are prophetic. 22 is the number of the Jews, the number of the end times, the number of chapters in Revelation. 11 is the number of chaos. That's why you got September 11, the terrorist attack. All that is in the Divine Code, my book, The Divine Code. I tell you all the meanings. I don't have any to advertise. I hope we got some. I've got a 7 Churches of Revelation tour in Turkey coming up in September. You can check it out if you want to go. discoverchurch.online/tour. I've got a cruise. People ask me, why are we going on a cruise to Iceland, Norway, and all this stuff? Because it's a time to get away and focus on hearing God. And we will mentor you, disciple. We will have this Bible studies. We will do that going from Iceland.
An immersive experience is only possible when one truly feels every pixel.
It's a TV. Just point your sofa at it.
Hisense just makes sense.
With Covermore Travel Insurance, we give you all the care in the world, so you won't have a care in the world.
I mean, literally putting our money into this. Of recent, we've had a number of declassified UFO documents and other sorts of documents that describe demonic activity and other bizarre things. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to get into a number of things that I recently discovered while doing research on this. We're also going to get into...
Lord, we're going to pray on behalf of Susan's son. He's going for surgery. Can you please make sure that goes right, God? We ask on her behalf. Thank you, Lord.
Sort of the ancient roots of all this alien and also some of these beings of the past, demonic entities, or the devil himself. We're going to get into actually all of this. I'm going to show you sort of an interesting roadmap to a number of things with regards to this and kind of tie it all together. We have here, of course, Steven Spielberg apparently making now a new movie about this topic. Here he is talking with Stephen Colbert. Check this out.
Let's talk about UFOs for a minute. What do you make of what's going on right now?
Oh, it's exciting. There's something out there.
So you're a believer?
I don't know if I'm a believer in the sense that I'm kind of the person that would think I got to see something like that to believe it.
So, of course, obviously, he's made a number of movies and series on this particular topic. You would think that he at least partially believes in this. Perhaps he's not telling you the entire story there.
He would have inside info on what's going on. You can bet on that.
His newest show is going to be called Disclosure,
It's coming out in May 2026. And the film stars
I'm going
Emily
well,
Blunt,
Susan.
Josh O'Connor, a number of other actors. And of course, this is a two-handler film with a UFO storyline. And so, of course, once again, he's doing that. I mean, he's done a number of shows and movies like this over the last decade or so. It seems like a lot of his movies, a lot of his sort of movies from the last decade tend to be in this realm. Now, what's interesting is we have a number of stories of recent, like today and yesterday. In this regard, flights grounded, airports shut down over UFO sighting. We've seen this numerous times over the last few months. Of course, we had the drones and all that, which we covered here on this channel. And it is interesting how we have so many of these stories still coming out. And this time, apparently, the airport, they even mentioned about this. Oh, yeah. So they say this airport is Gaziantep, whatever that was. I don't even know where this is. Turkey. Okay, so this is in Turkey. That might explain why I can't understand the name of the airport there. Flights grounded, airport shut down over UFO sighting. Now, of course, we also had this come out within the last, it was about 5 days, no, about a week ago. You have UFO expert says declassification could expose possible cover, of course, up spanning decades. Obviously, this is not rocket science. You've got to be kidding me. Considering all the stuff that's happened over the last week or two, I'm sure there's a lot of it. I'm sure there's a lot of it. Of course, we saw money going to a lot of places it shouldn't have been going. Not really surprising considering the amount of bad things happening, of course, in our GOV. We have here, and this is what's so bizarre, we have already some of these stories coming out from this declassified documents about UFOs. You have here from The Sun, Stranger Things, alien pyramids on Mars, time travel, and devil sketches. Inside the CIA's original Stargate, and this is, I did a video on this about, I don't know, a month or two ago, on the original Stargate, of course, project. And I did think it was curious that our president named this new AI project the same name. We had some rather curious things being told about what happened in the original project, where they had opened up some sort of, I don't know what you're going to call it, portal, and something stepped out. There was one particular instance of, obviously there was a lot of stuff they did in this project, but this was one interesting one, and made some sort of deal with this entity for 50 years over America, and it just ended not too long ago. It's kind of interesting. I covered it in a previous video. Of course, 50 years ago is when it was running. And it seems like everything's falling apart after this all happened, after this deal was made. And the way that the deal was made kind of sounds like something the devil would do, the way it sounded. So I don't know if these are really aliens, as they say. And of course, we're going to get into what Stephen Greer says and a number of other people, because he tries to delineate, saying aliens are not the same as demons. And, you know, I just want to kind of explore that too a little bit. We'll get into that. It is really interesting, though, some of the stuff that they were doing with our money, with our taxpayer dollars, with some of these projects. I mean, goodness gracious. I'm wondering whether they're drawing the devil here. I mean, were you communicating with the dude? I mean, it makes you kind of wonder. You have here God, what does this say? 10 command? I can't even read that. 10 ENTs. ENTs. I mean, they were getting, it's really interesting to me how they had an issue with people talking about this stuff online over the last 7 years. Can't talk about all this stuff. It's too out there. While they're funding, they're taking our own tax dollars and doing all this stuff that even looks more bizarre and crazy than anything anybody ever pretty much talked about online. I mean, literally putting our money into this. Remote, of course, viewing, being able to see some grapes drawn in another room and drawing their own. Here's a lady doing it. Yeah, okay. I just think it's interesting. Maybe it's because we were figuring stuff out. They didn't want us to know. Is that what it really was? And this one's really bizarre. Check this out. Mars exploration, 1984, May 22nd, 1984. They used a remote, viewer to go millions of years in the past over on Mars. Are you kidding me? Really? And apparently this is called science. So merely questioning simple things about science is wrong. Oh, you can't do that. But then they can do experiments like this where they get some guy who claims he can see something on Mars 1 million years ago. And that's science. Really? I don't think so. I don't think that's science. That's ridiculous to call this science, but then people actually looking into science and questioning things, not science, right? I find that so ironic. Here we have here method of sight.
He's talking about remote viewing. Nonetheless, remote viewing works. They do see things.
Acquisition. Sealed envelope coupled with geographic coordinates. The sealed envelope was given to the subject immediately prior to the interview. The envelope was not opened until after the interview. Obviously, it's been conducted scientifically. Wow, great. Still talking about a guy claiming he can see something on Mars 1 million years ago. I mean, seriously, give me a break. Selected geographic coordinates provided by parties requesting the information. Get on here. I kind of read through this. Plus 20 minutes or plus 10 minutes, ready to start. All right, now using the information in the envelope I provided, exclusively focusing your attention now. Using the information in the envelope, focus on 40.89 degrees north, 9.55 degrees west on Mars.
Diane, I read years ago somewhere on the net that the governments in World War II that gave America the gold to mine for them while they're getting attacked by the Nazis, that they've asked for their gold back. Belgium, I think it was, and America stuffed them around and didn't give them their gold back. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be any gold there.
Apparently. I want to say it looks like, I don't know. It sort of looks, I kind of got an oblique view of a pyramid form. It's very high. It's kind of sitting in a large depressed area. All right. It's yellowish, ochre colored. All right. Move in time to the time indicated on the envelope. I provided you and described what's happening. I'm tracking severe clouds, more like dust storm. Geographic problem seems like just a minute. I've got ironed this out. It's really weird. Just report your raw perceptions at this time. You're still early in the session. It's looking at after the effect of a major geologic problem. Okay, go back in time before the geologic problem. Total difference. It's before. I mean, look. Okay, just explain to me, how is this person able to travel back in time with their mind? You explain that one to me. How does he know how to go to a time before the geologic problem? How would he know?
How do we talk to God with our mind? I don't think he's being fair.
When the problem started. I mean, literally just making this stuff up and just writing it down. As far as I'm concerned, you have no clue that this is actually real, right? Just because someone can, let's just say there is the possibility. Let's just say it's true. You can do remote, of course, viewing. Let's just say it's real. And someone could go from one room to another one and see what's written on a paper. That doesn't mean he can travel back in time millions of years ago on Mars. There's a big difference between the two, okay? You see what I mean? Like, this is why I'm thinking this is ridiculous. And they spent all their money on this stuff. And this is just one of probably thousands of experiments they did. This is the kind of stuff
What about the Montauk?
I just thought it was kind of curious. Then you have...
What about the Montauk chair? He's making it out like these things don't happen.
Here, this is from yesterday. Robbie Williams claims psychic powers after UFO sightings dry up. I think of people and they phone me. So this guy thinks now he has psychic powers because he's no longer seeing UFOs. I mean, this is literally the stuff that's being talked about right now. Has been long fascinated. Robbie Williams has been long fascinated by the unexplained. Pop Icon says his days of spotting UFOs are behind him, replaced instead by eerie premonitions. This guy right here. So this is the kind of stuff that just passes as science these days. It just makes me wonder. I mean, I do believe in, various things like this that could theoretically happen, but just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's kind of my point. Now, getting into more of a serious tone, a little less sarcasm, let's get into some of these other things. So, my researcher found something rather curious.
Okay, one thing the Bible says is do not be observers of time. So it's banned in the Bible. That to me sounds like remote viewing.
Connections between various gods in ancient cultures and how it leads up into this whole UFO phenomenon. You have this being called Yusum Galu. And of course, you can see here a picture, ancient Mesopotamian picture of it. It's this.
I don't know about New Jersey vast. I don't know what you're talking about.
Being on the left, it looks rather strange. It looks like sort of like it has lion legs. It has sort of like a dragon scale-like body. Very strange looking head, obviously wings as well. And what was really interesting is he actually was able to connect this to
bloody ads.
Phone charging slowly? Here's why. There's a new charger on the market that's able to prolong your smartphone's battery life, bringing your...
Just to scripture. You know, when it talks about a roaring lion, the devil is like a roaring lion, or that he's a red dragon, it's actually referring probably to this creature right here. And I'm going to kind of show that in this video, that it actually has a lion-like body, while it can also fly and has a dragon-like features as well. And this is actually probably what it's referring to in scripture. So here we have Prometheus, the lion dragon. He wrote up this script for me, and we're going to kind of go through some of this and show some of this in this video as well, and then tie it into this whole UFO thing. So the Babylonian conquest and Daniel's intervention. Now what's interesting is they removed part of Daniel from scripture. It's called Bel and the Dragon, and it refers to Daniel actually feeding the dragon something and it dies. Now this dragon was worshipped in Babylon. So Marduk was the chief deity of Babylon during time of Cyrus. Marduk also identified with Baal. Baal, of course, is the religion that Israel was dealing with a lot. It's off track. Daniel had to intervene when Cyrus began to worship Baal, exposing the deception of the Baal priests. Daniel had them executed and destroyed the dragon that was worshipped alongside Baal. Now, what's interesting about this is this whole concept of Baal, Gilgamesh, and this dragon relates to this right here. Gilgamesh or Baal and the dragon. Okay, that's basically what's going on here. And it's mirrored in many religions. Satan and Gilgamesh worship Gilgamesh, Marduk, Baal, and Satan were openly venerated in Babylon. So Satan would actually be this being right here. And this would be the Gilgamesh figure. Okay? So this is the hero of old, Nimrod. Nimrod is Gilgamesh, the hero of old. And this is Satan himself. And I'm actually going to tie it into these ancient Akkadian texts showing that this being actually is described as the being in the Garden of Eden, the serpent. And the serpent, by its nature, it's referring to a dragon when it says serpent. So that serpent happened to be probably a being that looked just like this and lost its legs. Okay? So it's not exactly what you would call a snake as you think of today. It's a little bit different, obviously. Now, you can see here he kind of correlated all these different religions and showed their beings, all these different gods that were worshipped as being the same gods. Enki as the primordial trickster, creator, cosmic dragon. Enki being the devil himself, creator of humanity. This comes back to the demiurge concept. He wasn't actually the creator of humanity, but rather claims to be. Although you could take another aspect on this, which I'm not going to do, but the way I look at it is he was a deceiver. So you got the serpent dragon aspect to him, the great serpent dragon, bringer of fire or knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And actually the word tree in Genesis is referring to the being itself. So that's a higher, what do you call that? A higher symbolic terminology. Even Jesus himself used that, referring to people as trees. And it's sort of like a higher meaning underneath the surface type of thing, a symbolic meaning. So when it says tree of knowledge of good and evil, it's referring to the being itself, the serpent itself. It could also be a physical tree, but I kind of doubt it. I mean, it could be theoretically, but I think it's referring mainly to the being itself. Fire thief, Titan older than the Olympians, a shape-shifting trickster, bound in chaos. And you can see the creator and hidden one, so he hides himself, linked to Osiris and Baal, preserver and destroyer, kind of like Shiva. So we saw that with the Hadron, of course, collider, that being the devil himself. Shiva is related to the devil himself, the one in the garden. Shiva is a cosmic dancer, avatars, multiple forms, bringer of false light, roaring lion, deceiver, rules over the nations. So you can see here kind of the concept. Enki was known as Usham Gal or Usam Gala. Great serpent dragon was one of the three-horned serpents of Akkadian mythology, was worshipped in Urdu. Now, the Akkadian culture is the only culture that has a historical text or historical lineage all the way back to the original first humans. And they even have a book much longer than Genesis that talks about Adam and Eve and all that. And it goes into great, great detail, a lot more detail. Just put it that way. So Enki was worshipped in Urdu. He was associated with wisdom, water, healing, and creation. Prometheus, you've heard of the movie, the Alien movie franchise. Prometheus would be the devil himself as Enki, or also known as the trickster god Loki, or how do you say his name? Loki. I'm sorry, Loki. The tree of knowledge. So just as Prometheus gave fire to humanity, Enki was responsible for teaching humans arts and knowledge. The tree of knowledge, the tree of life motifs appear in Enki hymns, similar to the biblical serpent. Enki's association with trickery and shapeshifting aligns with Loki, Norse, Prometheus, Greek gods. And so they have, of course, a modern version of this, and that's what we're getting into now. This gets into the aliens part. Luciferian, of course, doctrine, and Trinitarian, avatars. Anu, sky god. Enel, storm and order. Enki, serpent, trickster. So, of course, if you understand ancient Hebrew, and this is what Dr. Michael Heiser talked about, that there was a god, the sky god, and there was also a god on earth. And the god on earth would be Jesus, even in the Old Testament, and the sky god would be God the Father in the heavens. And that was a concept that was known in the ancient times with the Israelites, but today they've pretty much dropped that concept. So that comes back to this, and these are actually the devil playing off those concepts and putting them into other religions. So you have Ra, the sun god, Ta, the cape creator, Amnum, the hidden one, magician, Hindu trinity, Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva, the destroyer. And you can see that is also, and this is a heretical version here, where it tries to, and this is sort of the theosophical thing right here, where it tries to replace the Holy Spirit with Satan. And so they incorporated Hindu concepts into these doctrines. A lot of people are not aware of this. They actually worked with the Hindus. They actually worked with the famous guy in Hinduism. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. Gandhi, right? They worked with him actually directly, the people from that society.
Hey, everybody, good to see you.
Create what you see as modern day Hinduism. So that gets into the whole lamb versus ram. So the Baphomet would be the ram versus the lamb. And so that concept gets into this. And we'll get into that more as we get farther into this video. But I wanted to kind of get into some of these other concepts, show you kind of the idea of when people do artwork on this being. You can see here's an example, a lion and a dragon in one. This is why he's the red dragon and also the roaring lion. Okay, kind of interesting, right? He has wings as well. And it's just like this being here. This might be actually a very accurate depiction of him. I'm not sure. So on the left. So then we have this here, getting into the UFOs a little bit more. This is from Joe Rogan. Check this out.
But if you're making something that is some sort of a gravity propulsion system and you've made a breakthrough, you're not going to put that on Wired.com. You're not going to broadcast that on.
Of course, they're not going to tell us anything. They're not going to tell us what they've been in contact with, whether it's from another dimension or another world, right? And so all these things they keep hidden, including their technology, like this gravity technology.
And you're not going to tell anybody that. Because if the other countries find out, if the other superpowers, if China and Russia find out that we have some sort of a gravity propulsion, everyone's going to die.
Well, and the thing that's interesting about that is apparently China has that technology as well. That's why we saw all those flying things of recent over the last couple of months. Matter of fact, here's an example. A lot of people ask me whatever happened to those flying objects. Nothing happened. They're just still out over the ocean every night. They're coming from the ocean. And I'm going to show you something rather curious with regards to that in a second as well. They're still out over the ocean every night. The news just got bored and moved on. So apparently it's still continuing on.
So these are the drones over Bradley Beach, New Jersey.
They're just there. They're still there. It's just no one talks about it anymore because we already heard about it. Don't need to talk about it anymore, right? It's like, what's interesting is they used to have this structure just off the coast on Google Maps, but apparently they scrubbed it. Check this out.
Pictures of this structure still exist on the internet. And thanks to Ripley Cooks, we even have recent video of this anomaly. Whether it's a massive underwater alien base or just a really strange underwater geographical structure is unknown. But what is known is that it's 2,000 feet underwater and approximately 3 miles wide.
That is really strange.
Have an array of columns that were supporting a giant dome.
Yeah.
So, of course, the question is, why did they scrub it on the map when it looks like there's some mega structure underneath the ocean right off the coastline, which, of course, is where all these things are at? Everyone keeps seeing them come from the ocean to, the coastline. And maybe that's where they're coming from, right? That's kind of interesting. Why don't we know about this? Why? Of course, they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what they don't want you to know. Okay? See what I mean? We have Dr. Greer here talking about some of this, about this gravitic propulsion. Check this out.
It's actually electrogravitics and electrogravitic field propulsion, but it's not a physics class.
Okay.
So what happened is that that research combined with a augmentation of that research, a big leap forward by studying the extraterrestrial vehicles that we downed in the mid 40s and 50s.
Right.
So by the time those two streams combined to a mighty river of research, but it was covert, as I was referring.
Right. And so what's interesting about it is who's the only other country that now apparently has this technology? China. And should that be surprising considering the fact that they would make, and they're well known.
Lunchtime cravings kicking in? Relieve them with Nicorette, the #1 stop smoking brand in Australia.
Go to cleverrains.com.au and discover how we can help you simplify your life.
I think a partner is exactly what you need.
No. I told Dad that I needed someone who wasn't afraid to ruffle a few feathers, but not my feathers.
Flight attendants on my plane wore shorts. Very unprofessional.
Unbelievable.
Well known for reverse engineering things. So maybe they got a few of our vehicles that went down over there and they just decided to reverse engineer them and figure out how they ran and made their own. And that's why we've been seeing them for months over various parts of, America. So makes you kind of wonder. Of course, there's a lot of people still talking about this. Like I said, orbs over and under, of course, the water bubbling. This is from the 14th of this month. Check this out. It's underwater there. You can see it. There's actually lights coming off it. It's underwater. This one's just
Not very
above the
big.
water. Obviously, perhaps they're coming from something underneath the water. That might make sense considering the fact people have numerous videos showing this. It would make sense, right? Not rocket science. Of course, it just seems so interesting how the last so many years, actually numerous years, they just kind of ignored all this stuff. And just like, oh, I wonder why. Now we have a new president, and he seems to be declassifying things, and just everything seems to be backwards. Oh, most of the money has been basically, fraud or whatever. I wonder, maybe it's so they could run some of these projects or whatever the weird stuff they're doing. Who knows? And I thought I would just throw this video in here because I thought this is rather curious as well. I remember I had a video recently about a man at nighttime near his house showing something in the trees.
Yeah, I remember
breaking the trees down. You couldn't even see what it was. Like every time you try to look for it, you couldn't find it. And it reminded me of that movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger where the thing was camouflage, right? Well, apparently we have another one here. This guy caught this on a drone. This is literally tearing trees down. Okay, this is not some small thing. There's no way. I don't know what's doing this, but you can see it right at the end that it runs across an area where it's empty, and you see like basically some sort of predator type thing. Check this out. All right, so you see how it's moving around? The trees are bowing.
I've seen that on That's Impossible channel.
and
Pretty
moving.
stunning.
He's going to show it right now. You're going to see it. See how you see that right there? Right at the end? So like, look here, look back here. You see that like it's moving, the trees are moving in a huge way. And over here, you'll see it move across the screen. Right there. You saw that? See, that's an opening, but it looked like a tree literally walked across. So it's almost like it's a camouflaged with what's its own surroundings. So it actually mirrors what's seen around it as you're looking at it. I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of. It's kind of weird, but Andrew, I thought I'd just throw that in there just to see what you guys thought about that. Then we have this clip here. Check this out.
So what kind of communication are you having when you're summoning these beings?
We don't summon them. The King of England would summon a valet.
So
I know Jake.
So he's going to get into this thing about summoning is like beneath them, and like we're trying to respect aliens and stuff. That's basically what he's saying here. But then he goes on to say some other things. Let me see if I can get over to that.
And so that's why I don't like the term alien, which means foreign, right? I like the term, people. People say, "What do you call it?" So they're.
So he's looking at it kind of in that way. Let's play this here.
That is known within many traditional circles. They wanted to conflate that with aliens.
So he's talking about demons and aliens, because of course a lot of people have been saying they're one and the same. He's trying to say they're actually not the same thing.
And it's easy to do because that is another special operations capability. And that is to use very powerful electromagnetic systems to create phenomenon like you see at Skinwalker or Bradshaw Ranch. We know how they're doing it. I know who's doing it. I know what the electronics are. Now there's an innate.
Now what's interesting about that is, isn't it some of the same? I mean, it's not the same technology, but it sounds related.
And that was there, but then both sites were taken over by covert human black operations.
So this is weird to me because it seems like they use very similar technology for both. So it makes you wonder if it is actually related. And then he gets into actually in the same interview, he gets into how the Greys are actually something that was created by the CIA. This is what he says. And that actually makes sense because I was thinking the Greys were manufactured too. I thought they were just suits that I think spirits use. When I say spirits, I'm thinking demons. So that's why I think those beings are not actually It's like a vehicle they're riding in, if that makes sense. So he even admits that they're manufactured. I was thinking they're manufactured, and they're probably being run by obviously nefarious spirits of some sort. Then, of course, we have this. We have this is Mike's channel, Signorelli. That's how you say his name. Talking about some of these documents these are the things that were funded with their tax dollars: poltergeist and cultural values. Okay, like what? Apparently, poltergeist. They're analyzing those, and actually, I think I have the document right here. These are the things that have been declassified, and you're just like, what? They're 1984. They're looking at Mars a million years ago. Now they got something about poltergeist and cultural values. I mean, who is coming up with these things, right? Like, what is going on here? And I mean, if this is just like the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure they spent money on a lot of really, really bizarre things, and that's just one example right there. So now it's interesting getting back to the whole thing with the ancient gods, as we call them, or devils, or in some cases they're just small g gods in the divine council of God that have fallen, because the whole concept of the term angel is almost like it's a misnomer. It's almost like to keep believers in the dark on what's really going on. That's pretty much what it is. They oversimplify it to say, "Oh, just call them all angels." The word angel means it's an occupation. It means like postman. It means messenger. It has nothing to do with the type of being it is or anything at all. It's like basically, oh, we don't care. We don't, whatever. Just call them all angels. We don't care. This is how people are, particularly when they don't want to deal with the topic. But when we look at in Scripture, it talks about there was a divine council, and these beings were higher level beings. You got seraphim, cherubim, and some of these beings were dragons. And some of these false gods, even in the Aztecs, as you can see here on the screen, they worshipped a dragon. It is very curious how almost every one of these ancient religions has some sort of lion-like dragon that they worshipped. Again, coming back to Enki, Loki, all these beings are one and the same. At any rate, I'm going to get into more on my video on my secondary channel, God Wills 2. I'm going to talk about how actually we have this motif in Scripture. This is from Mordecai's dream. So all these chapters are removed from Scripture. You have the last chapter of the book of Esther. You have the last chapter of Daniel, Bel and the dragon. All the ones that talk about dragons were removed for some reason. What's interesting about this, I don't think that the devil wants anybody to know how this all works. That's why I'm talking about it. It talks about a white dragon versus a red dragon, or a good dragon versus an evil dragon in Mordecai's dream. What's interesting is, of course, it talks about Yahweh is the lion of the tribe of Judah. It also talks about you being protected under his wings. And I'm going to get into essentially the history of archaeology and what we know about that time frame. They had no birds that protected, they had no motifs of birds of any sort protecting their young. It was always dragons. So God himself shows himself fire-breathing in Psalms with wings protecting you, and also as a lion, the lion of the tribe of Judah. I believe that God is showing himself in the same form, and that the devil is challenging him. And that's where we get this motif in the book of Esther, Mordecai's dream, of a good dragon, Yahweh, versus an evil dragon, Enki or Baal, fighting for the next 500 years, as I've talked about in the past, where you have these Onas, 500-year Onas. We just moved from being under the red dragon, or Loki, or Enki, or whatever you want to call it, to being under Yahweh for 500 years. And we had that happen last time during the Middle Ages. We were underneath for 1,000 years under the white dragon. And so I'm going to get into that and actually show you some of the archaeological stuff showing this. There's some crazy stuff. I mean, I'm going to get into some new interesting stuff this year as we go farther in this year, including, you know, you've heard of anointing oil. You know, put anointing oil on the sick. Apparently, something was, there's a certain ingredient in that oil that has been banned in America that you cannot use. even though it's not harmful. I thought that was interesting. I'll get into that in another video. Anyway, that's my video. Kind of what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
If you want to make passive income online, I'd like to pay you $5,000 to $10,000 a month to help my agency, Veritas Digital, generate.
It's time for Lefties Are Losing It, and you asked for it, and you should. Let's jump into a jaw.
What happened there?
And give you some signs to watch for. And I'm going to say it this way. I can't give you financial advice, but I sent a text to my son-in-law today, and I said, if you are in the stock market, my suggestion is that you need to give me a call. And if he calls me, that's pretty much what I'm going to tell him. You're in very big danger, but I can't tell him what to do. Okay, here it is. This is part of it. So Brandon Biggs, now who's he? He's the guy that saw Trump get shot
in the ear,
3 months before it happened. He had about 50,000 subscribers, and probably by now he's up to 500,000. So a lot of people started listening to this guy. So anyway, he says there is an event coming that's going to cause a stock market crash. Hope you're listening. Now, I can't guarantee I understand what it is, but I'm giving you the best guess that I can. The angel brought up the dollar again to me, saying last night and told me, I told you the purchasing power of the dollar will be around 50 cents. It's happening right now. Inflation is getting worse and worse, and the purchasing power of the dollar is crumbling as we speak, day by day by day. He said, there will be here it is, a major event. Now, that's the point that I'm trying to make today. And that's the question we're trying to answer. What is that major event? I think I'm going to be able to, I'm going to give you a very good idea. Can't guarantee it, but I think I know. I have a very good idea. Let's put it this way. He said there's going to be a major event that causes a significant stock market crash. It will send it into like a 1930s type crash. It's coming. There will be an event that happens. And if you want to get gold, 800-200-GOLD. If you want to get prepper bars, 844-741-1776. If you want to put your cryptocurrency into gold and silver, blocktrustira.com. Okay. First of all, look at gold. Here it is. Now, I covered this a couple of days ago, but I got to back up and bring some articles because...
Diane, he said that Trump will massively turn back to God, but we know that didn't happen. That's why I haven't played his videos the guy of the bloody year, actually, because the first half was good, but the second half didn't pan out, and that's why I never played him. If they're dead set wrong, there's no point playing them.
I have to show you what's coming. Why banks are flying gold bars on commercial flights from London to New York City? That's a very good question. The amount of gold being flown across the Atlantic on commercial airliners is significant. JP Morgan said in a filing with CME Group's COMEX that it plans to move about $4 billion in gold from London to New York in February. What's going on? Now, the article goes on to say that they're afraid of Trump tariffs. I don't think it's over Trump tariffs. I think it's over Trump. I think that they know that Trump is about to go. He's going to walk out of there disappointed. They're talking about him actually walking in there with live cameras running. Okay, so I mean, this could be really big. There's more. Hang on. Then we look at the Korean banks. They have halted sales of gold and silver bars. What? Why? Covered this a couple of days ago, too. So banks in Korea are halting the sales of silver bars amid surging demand, driven by increasing global uncertainties brought about by the U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats. Now, I think I'm going to be able to answer some big questions here in a second. Lenders also earlier suspended the sales of gold bars, which have emerged as the most popular safe haven asset in recent months. Due to the surge in gold and silver prices and the resulting spike in demand, which has outpaced supply, the Korean Minting and Security Printing Corporation has halted its supply of gold bars thanks to banks on Wednesday last week. However, the silver bar prices are also soaring. The exchange notified banks of the suspension of silver bar supply. What's going on? I think they're scared out of their mind that Trump is about to find out the biggest theft in human history. I think they're not. Let me go on. There's more. That's really important. So investors turned to silver bars as an alternative, leading to a surge in demand for silver bars. And remember, Shane Warren was told back in 2010 by the audible voice of God that silver is going to skyrocket.
Wow, does he die?
Gold. And for one of the things, we had one of the guys from Genesis Gold on here, and he said the reason is because they haven't found any new silver mines in many years. And they know that there's a finite amount of silver. Now they're still finding gold, new gold.
Diane, I saw Trump yesterday on something, and you could see directly close to his head. And I looked at his ear, and there's nothing there. There's no scar at all. There's nothing there. So what's going on there? Like, if you get a bullet hit your ear, it's going to leave a little bit of damage because he bled, but his ear's perfect. So was that a real assassination attempt?
But they're not finding new silver, according to him. And he thinks that's the reason. Let me put it in a nutshell. Try to imagine this scenario.
Yeah, I didn't trust that guy once he said the ear thing, and then he said Trump will turn back to God. When he got that wrong, I didn't want to hear what else he had to say.
Okay, so all of a sudden the dollar drops like crazy.
Yeah.
Now you got all these people with their money in paper, stock market, 401k, IRA, things like this, wherever it is, and all of a sudden they don't want to lose it all. So they call the broker, what about gold? The broker says, well, first of all, it's going to be about 8, 10, 12 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 months before you can actually get the gold in your hands. Okay, if they got silver go up. It also makes the price of gold go up. Well, let's go on. Anyway, so sales expected to end soon once their remaining stock is exhausted. Okay, supply and demand. Following Trump's election as U.S. president, demand for safe haven assets has surged, driving prices higher. We understand that. Waiting times to receive gold from the Bank of England went from 4 weeks to now it's up to 8 weeks.
It certainly didn't leave a scar, Diane.
Why are they not able to deliver gold? What used to be, even before this other article said it was 2 weeks. So what changed from delivering it to 2 weeks to 8 weeks? Could it be, bottom line here, read the last line, because they don't have any gold and they're trying to scrape it up from around the world? Could it be that there's no gold, or the gold in Fort? No, hang on. This is important. Let's go on. Last night, word came in from Germany that they've been asking the Bank of England to return gold held in storage for Germany, and the Bank of England keeps making excuses for not shipping it. Germany says they've not gotten any of their gold back from Bank of England. Emergency has nothing to do with Ukraine. I don't think it has anything to do with Knox. Let's go on. Next article. Yeah. Trump said, matter of fact, I'm going to play you a video in just a second if you play everything. Him saying this. Trump says he's going to personally inspect the gold at Fort Knox. I want to find out, Mr. Trump said. So we're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. Here's a couple of videos. Watch what he says.
We're also going to Fort Knox. I'm going to go with Elon. And Would anybody like to join us? Because we want to see if the gold is still there. We want to see. And I'm going to do something. I'm actually going on this one. You know, all my life I've heard about Fort Knox. That's where the gold is kept, right? I heard Fort Knox. Oh, but you know, we're getting a little bit shaky. We're getting the yips on this stuff. Like, I want to find out. So we're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. We want to find out. Did anybody steal the gold in Fort Knox? It's a pretty amazing place, but I'm going to actually go. We're going to open the doors. We're going to inspect Fort Knox. We want to make sure that we actually have, you know, 400 tons of gold.
Now, hang on to that thought. I'm going to tie some other things to it in just a second. Musk signals Doge could look into gold at Fort Knox. So this is not just Trump, but this is also Elon Musk. And I think they're scared to death of Trump, but they're really scared of Doge. Because they've seen him find things that they thought was hidden. They've seen him find purchases, money transfers they didn't think that would be discovered. And yet, he discovered them. They're scared out of their mind. Let's go on, there's more. I'm still making my pointer. Then Mike Lee, which I understand he's a congressman, said, as a U.S. Senator, I've tried repeatedly to get into Fort Knox. Fort Knox says, you can't come to Fort Knox. I said, why? Fort Knox, well, it's a military installation. I said, I'm a senator. I go to military bases all the time. Fort Knox says, well, you still can't come in. He says, why? He says, well, because you can't. Are they going to say that to Donald Trump? I don't think they're going to get by with saying that to President Trump. I think he'll probably roll up with Marines and tanks. And when they see the Marines out front, they'll probably open the doors. And if he walks in, cameras rolling and putting it live on the internet, oh my, hang on. I've got a blockbuster piece of information coming. Hang on. Now, this guy says if an audit of Fort Knox reveals that the U.S. doesn't have as much gold as they claim, the impact on the financial markets would be massive. Here's a breakdown. Loss of trust. The U.S. dollar is no longer backed by gold. It would destroy the confidence in U.S. financial integrity. The USD would drop assets like gold and silver. If people panic and dump the U.S. value of the dollar going 30% to zero, that explains things getting extremely expensive. I'm going to explain. Let's go on. Now, here comes the big bugaboo. This is from Benjamin Fulford. This was this morning, February 24th, as I'm recording this. Headline, Trump revelation will lead to a system collapse. Communist China will be the last domino to fall. Now, he's got some real important things here. He says, this is how it's. In October 2009, the Chinese received a shipment of gold bars. This is important. Gold is regularly exchanged between countries to pay debts and to settle the so-called balance of trade. Most gold is exchanged and stored in vaults under the supervision of a special organized based in London, the London Bull Market Association. When the shipment was received, the Chinese government asked that special tests be performed to guarantee the purity and the weight of the gold bars. In this test, 4 small holes were drilled into the gold bars, and then the metal was then extracted and analyzed. Chinese officials were shocked, here it is, to learn that the gold bars were fake. They contained cores of tungsten with only an outer coating of real gold. What's more, these gold bars contained serial numbers for tracking, originated in the United States, and had been stored in Fort Knox for years. La-di-da, boom, there you go. So, Trump goes into Fort Knox, cameras running live on the internet. Oh, and he sees piles of gold bars. He's happy, except for he's not stupid like so many others were, and he's got the authority. Marines behind him with a drill. As a matter of fact, when I interviewed Jonathan Rose here, 800-200 Gold, on this last interview, very interesting, he said something. He says they now have electronic instruments. You can put the electronic instrument next to the gold bar, and it could detect up to 4 milliliters I didn't say that right. Not 4 millimeters, 4 centimeters, which is about half an inch, I think. Okay. About half an inch thick, and they can tell if that's a solid gold bar. So if you try to imagine, I don't have anything that represents a gold bar, so maybe it is. Here you go. Let's say this is a gold bar. Okay, so they touch it here, touch it here. You know, if they can go 4 centimeters into that gold bar and see if that's real gold, guess what? If it's only coated in gold, they're going to know it. They're going to know it real soon. And you can rest assured, Trump is no chump. He's going to walk in there with that little device. And he's about to find out. Let me rephrase it, because I don't know what's going to happen. But what if, pose a question, what if he finds out that that gold is not really all gold? Let's go on. So Chinese officials were shocked to learn that the bars were fake. They contained cores of tungsten with only an outer coating of real gold. What's more, these gold bars containing the serial numbers for tracking originated in the United States and had been stored in Fort Knox for years. Boom. There were reportedly between 5,600 and 5,700 bars weighing 400 ounces each in the shipment. That is approximately 70 metric tons. Today's value is 6.6 billion. Now, I heard Trump say some 400,000 pounds. I don't know. Whatever it is, he says whatever it is.
See.
The Chinese investigators found out that during part of the Clinton administration, when Alan Greenspan was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, remember the Federal Reserve is not federal, has doubtful reserves, okay? These are the international Molochs that control and rule the world. Chairman of the Federal Reserve, approximately 1.2 million 400-ounce tungsten blanks were allegedly manufactured by a very high-end sophisticated refiner in New Jersey. Nearly 15,000 metric tons as part of this operation. 64,000 of these tungsten blanks received their gold plating and were shipped to Fort Knox. Most of it is there now, approximately 8,000 metric tons. According to the Chinese investigation, the balance of this 1.2 million 400,000 tungsten cash was also gold plated. Then alleged sold in the international market means it's not just Fort Knox, it's around the world. And apparently, the global market is saturated with these 400,000 salted bars with a current value as much as 650 billion. Now, would the international bankers, the Molochs, would they do something like that? Satan comes not but for to kill, steal, and destroy. Yes, they would. Facts about tungsten. Now, this is what I found real interesting. Facts about tungsten. Tungsten is a fraction of the price of gold. It's about $45 per kilo, as compared to $93,000 per kilo at gold prices. Gold and tungsten, however, have very similar densities, with gold at approximately 19.3 grams per centimeter and tungsten slightly less, around 19.2 grams per centimeter. What this means is tungsten is the ideal metal to take and put it in the shape of a gold bar, coat it with gold, put it on the shelf and say it's real gold, because it looks the same, feels the same, weighs about the same, unless you, as I can see, into 4 centimeters into it, or if you're like the Chinese, you drill 4 little holes in it and you pull out the metal and you make sure that it's all gold. I don't think Trump's stupid. I think he suspects that there's not really gold there.
Yeah, I agree on that.
He's going to go in there and he's going to discover, oops. And with the cameras rolling, what's going to happen to the stock market? What's going to happen to the price of gold and silver? What's going to happen to our dollar? Just like Shane Warren was told. Let's go on. What makes the situation even worse is that Bill Clinton also allowed this fake gold to be leveraged 1,000 times, creating the countless quadrillions of derivatives that are now destroying the financial system. This is why Trump is repeatedly talking about Fort Knox these days. There's more. The center of this financial black hole is the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. Remember, I told you that the Ashkenazi Jews, that are not really Jews, they call themselves Jews, but they're not, they're the synagogue of Satan. They originated out of Ashkenazi, which is in the land today, which is mostly called Ukraine. And that what we got the word Nazi from in World War II came from a short version of the word Ashkenazi, okay? And that Moloch worship went from Ashkenazi Jews that are not Jews, went from the Molochs in Ukraine to Switzerland, then to Germany, and that's who we were fighting in World War II. America switched sides, thanks to Biden, and we've been supporting the Molochs. We've been supporting the Nazis now. Whereas Russia, they were against the Nazis in World War II. They're still fighting the Nazis today. So Russia did not change sides. And I'm not getting into that whole Ukraine thing, but we're the problem. Okay? We started it. Anyway, get on here. The BIS reports to no government on earth. That's right. They are above government. They report to Satan. They are his people that rule the world for him. The BIS reports to no government on earth, and even members of the Swiss government are forbidden from entering its headquarters. Let me read that again. The BIS reports to no government on earth, and even members of the Swiss government are forbidden from entering its headquarters. By cutting off the flow of funds from the U.S.
Good night, guys.
Trump has set in motion a chain of events that will unravel the whole system. I think he's got it here. Trump is breaking the old order, which means the old times, both political and economic. One of the expected results of such steps is the collapse of the entire Washington Regional Committee, after which the scales of the global political arena will soon tilt in the other direction, I'm sure. I insist that the main events of the collapse of the English world will take place in the middle of 2025. Okay, so the title here is, when's the dollar going to crash? Well, I don't know. God has not told me. But if Brandon Biggs is right that there's one event that's about to cause it, I think you'd agree that probably the best guess, and that's what it is, the best guess, that event would be when Trump walks into Fort Knox. Now, when's he going to walk in Fort Knox? I don't know. But if I had an IRA or a 401k, or if I had a bunch of money in the bank, any place where it's paper, any place where you can lose it in a minute, if I had that, I'd be getting it over into gold, silver, preferably. I would probably get mostly silver, if not all silver. I don't have to worry about it. I'm a minister. I don't have any money. The main events of the collapse of the English world will take place in the middle of 2025. I'll say that again. In the middle of 2025. In general, the whole year will be very busy. One thing after another will collapse, and a gigantic global catastrophe awaits us. Then, as further confirmation, we're not done with the article. I need to get back to the article in just a second. Now, this is from Michael Lee. This is from one of the senators. Doge uncovers over 4 million government credit cards responsible for 90 million transactions. Doge will announce changes to the credit card system within a week. That's February 19th. Okay, so did we just get a hint to when the dollar might start falling? Well, no, we didn't. Or did we? February 19th, within a week. Okay, let's finish the article. Back to the article. However, what we are hearing from multiple sources is, here it is, the system needs to collapse before it can be replaced. So the first half of 2025 could be chaotic, like the Russian professor predicts. I'll read it again, if you're catching it. What we're hearing from multiple sources is the system that we've been on for, 300 years, needs to collapse before it can be replaced. So the first half of 2025 could be chaotic. Trump is doing his part to speed up the process. And a massive blow.
Yeah, he won't go in with cameras rolling. You're right. They won't get into the fort if they do that.
To the deep state, Trump signed an executive order bringing independent agencies under presidential oversight, including Federal Election
Because the cameramen won't be allowed in.
Commission, he's got to clean that up. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, and that's, I hope he's going to say things like CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC. You can't lie anymore. If you're going to lie, then we're going to start fining. We'll finally take you off the air. That could happen to the FCC and the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. These are the guys that say, "Oh, well, make it so hard to start a business, make it so hard to keep a business going. You got to pay attorneys lots." And I found that when we started the oil company. And the Federal Trade Commission. The order requires all these agencies to submit the regulations to Trump's budget chief, Russ Vought. In other words, he's taken control of them. This is a good sign. Trump is ultimately going to target their current overseer, the Federal Reserve Board. What did that line just say? That line just said that they're headed to the Federal Reserve Board. Who's the Federal Reserve? Well, this is your independent central bank that has nothing to do with the government, that prints our money and then sells it back to us. These are the international Moloch organizations. Remember, the Lord showed me in a dream that regardless of who plants the bombs or who they blame it on, the people behind the suitcase nukes will be international bankers, i.e. the Federal Reserve. So, what happens when the Federal Reserve gets kicked out of the money business? We've ruled this planet for thousands of years. We'll destroy it rather than give it up. Remember that? A couple of more articles here. Central bank bailout coming. The European Central Bank may be preparing for a bailout of France. It appears France is broke from all its Ukraine spending. The plan is being kept secret as not to incense German voters. Goes on down, says it was literally and actually a conspiracy to deceive by concealment. In other words, there's a whole bunch of secrets that are in the process of coming out. So you remember that Benjamin Fulford was told, we've ruled this planet for thousands of years. We'll destroy it rather than give it up. My guess is that when we...
Good night, Susan.
Goes into Fort Knox and he discovers...
Okay, guys, I'm out as well.
I don't know what he's going to discover, but let's say he walks out and all of the world is disappointed. The gold that's supposed to be there isn't, or not all of the gold is there.